Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm joined by Enticity and ARubberDuckOfWar, and we're going to be going through every single faction and essentially just giving our opinions on where they stand in the meta overall. How you guys doing?
Quack quack.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm doing all good, man.
Did you say quack quack?
Yeah.
I was gonna say when you sent me your avatar today, or your I think your channel icon is so good. Who actually did that?
Oh man,
did you do that yourself or?
No, it's actually someone in the community.
Yeah.
It's called Sir Tarquin.
Yeah.
So he's probably popped up in some of your live streams and stuff before. He designed mine, and then I think he recently designed, I want to say Logic's one as well, which is like a dwarf, which was really badass.
Yeah.
And he just kind of surprised me with it. It was awesome. So ever since then, I've been using it.
Yeah, it looks really good, man. You guys been enjoying the Immortal Empires action?
Totally, man. How could we not?
I know. It was a pretty brutal dry spell for a while, man. The first couple months. I mean, it was, of course, I had a great time with the new factions for like a couple months, man. But yeah, we kind of, I don't know. What was the DLC cycle like at the end of Warhammer 2? Like, how long did we have to wait to get a new faction?
Yeah.
While towards the end, it's not getting longer and longer. I'm 100% with you. They're playing all the old factions again, but like mixing up the matchups and stuff's been so refreshing and nice.
Yeah. Absolutely, especially with domination mode too, because it's like a whole new beast, right? Like obviously we've had a lot of land battles before, but like even taking like Empire into Dark Elves and Domination, it feels like a whole new experience, you know, simply because it's like a new game mode and whatnot.
Yeah, what's probably been most exciting for me is kind of theory crafting what's going to be great, what's going to be bad. And sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got the greatest like idea. It's going to be, you know, impossible for anyone to beat my Lizardman or whatever. And then it just doesn't work at all for something that I didn't foresee, and then getting to play around and try and fix it and that kind of stuff.
Dude, Lizardmen seem really, really strong. Like for both of you guys, starting with you, Enticity, like what's been your favorite faction to play? Like of all the old world factions, who's been your like gem that you think you're going to be taking into competitive as we progress into Immortal Empires?
Probably Lizardman. I think.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lizardman is up there. A lot of the factions that I think are getting new units are going to be stronger. Oh, and like vampire counts too, but no one wants to play against counts right now.
Yeah,
that's true. Apparently I'm a bit quiet.
I just turned you up, so we should be good.
Okay, sweet.
But you were saying, so Lizardman is going to be your go-to. Like, what about Lizardman has just been like super solid for you in Domination?
Yo, it's the speed.
The speed.
They're so fast. Yeah, like it's like it's because like unlike other pretty fast factions like Slaanesh, they're not as flimsy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's nice.
Have you been?
It's like Slaanesh with ranged.
Have you been using a primary core of like Saurus, or you find yourself using more like skink-based armies? And do skinks have the expendable trait like the cohorts? I don't think they do, right?
Don't. That's why I love them.
Ooh, that's good.
They are so good because of it.
300 gold, full capture weight.
Yeah. And are you using the cohorts more like the ones with the javelins, or do you find yourself using some of the bare bones ones just for the speed and the objective weight?
Like both. Like sometimes I max out both. It's like Slaanesh Marauders.
What monsters have both of you guys found to be pretty good for the dinos? Like what have been your go-tos? Is the Ark of Sotek? I know there was a lot of talk about the Ark of Sotek being just like an unholy terror. Like this was speculation, but like being on objectives, launching snakes everywhere, has that been changed? Has it been buffed? Have you guys been finding like the Dread Saurian to be good? Like what's been your go-to beasts? Or is it mostly just infantry?
For me, actually, big old Crocky G on Grimlock has been an absolute staple, believe it or not. Oh. I thought Mazdamundi was going to be the one, because, you know, relatively mobile, fantastic clearing shaft, got the Evereffect spells, but Krokar just packs such a punch, and it allows you also to kind of pair him up with Lord Croak, which in some matchups is just very, very disgusting. I think I learned that from Enticity, actually, watching him play against, I think it was Samurai Warrior, and I saw the power of Lord Croak, and ever since then, I've been sneaking him into builds as much as possible.
Yeah, he annihilates undead.
You croaked me pretty hard a couple times in Enticity. I think there was one or two games we played where like I was playing a slower faction. I can't remember. Maybe it was like Tomb Kings, and my Tomb Guard were just getting blown up, or I can't remember. But yeah, Croak actually seems good, right?
Yeah, but if he gets sort of fixed and he doesn't double explosion, he might not be as great after.
I've checked that out. I don't know if is it a bug or not a bug, because like he seems to explode and do a load of damage, and then a few seconds later there's like a little like poof, and like a bit more damage comes out. So I don't know if that's meant to be there or not. I was going to ask you guys.
it seems like it's probably unintended.
So you're saying there's like an aftershock when he uses his like deliverance of pizza? It goes twice?
Yeah. The effect lasts like 2 seconds instead of 1.
Okay.
So
it's not like full damage though, is it? It seems to be like a load of damage and then a smaller chunk after, but maybe yeah.
It could be because like models are in the air. I don't know, but you know,
there's a lot of weird stuff like that. Like we have like Volkmar has like I think 4 banishments right now. Like they're just like I didn't even notice it in one of my games. I was like just happily banishing everything. I was like, oh, this is great, and I was like, oh, wait a second, this is probably a bug. Yeah, it's I don't know if that's gonna stay.
Another bug that I don't want to show on video because I'm very sure it's a bug now.
Yeah.
Razordons like pierce like crane gunners, so they 2-shot any infantry.
Oh my god! So you're saying that like with their dart guns, or with you're not saying the rock drops, right?
Like the Razordons, like sort of the AP salamanders.
Oh wow!
They're like 2-shot chosen.
Oh my god!
Oh, I didn't even notice. Okay.
Yeah, it's insane. But assuming if it doesn't get fixed, I'm making a video on it. But
yeah, that's really good. It's funny because just before we started the stream, guys, we were all like talking about Dune Spice Wars. And we were saying like how good Enticity would be at that, just because he can find these inner workings and these things that are so strong. And yeah, like I had no idea that even existed, but I feel like I don't know who has that. Do Jezzails have similar mechanics to the crane gunners in that they have like a penetrating shot, or did they always? I can't really recall.
Sure. Do you remember, Duck?
Have you guys tested them right now?
They do. I haven't tested it since.
Yeah, we can just boot it up, right?
Yeah, I've used them, but I've not like zoomed in to see what's going on. I'm normally panicking and trying to micro everywhere.
Yeah, no, Skaven are very much like a panicking faction where there's just stuff routing, and they do feel pretty good though. But I think it's about time we can start on the list. So we will start with you, Rubberduck. What?
Ooh, the pressure!
I know, just all the pressure here, and we have to have Enticity go last, otherwise we're just going to copy what he says and just go from there. That would be.
It's like, yeah, that guy probably knows what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
like all right, yeah. Those points sound really good, man.
Yeah.
But Rubberduck, what do you got for the greenskins, man? So firstly, open up with giving them like an overall like rating, whether it be like S tier, A tier, B tier, and then just kind of give a little bit of rationale. And we'll go through for each of us, and we'll be doing this for every faction.
Yeah. So. The way I'm going to be doing the ranking, I guess we should explain that, is I'm kind of doing like S+ down to F, like the standard tier list system everyone knows. And also, I've not played every faction on this list, but I've at least played against them multiple times, and I've played a lot of them, so some of this is speculation, but a lot of it is also just gameplay.
Yeah.
And for me, in Domination, greenskins are actually quite strong, simply because they basically have everything. They've got fantastic, monsters. They have elite infantry, which has the holding power. They have cheap troops. They also have cheap troops who aren't expendable, which is pretty huge because units with expendable are actually quite bad zombies are kind of a bit of a let off, but most of them are quite bad just due to how quickly they rout and the fact they have no capture weight whatsoever. And greenskins towards the end of Warhammer 2 were just the bane of my existence. Ever since the Warhammer World Championships, I thought they were really phenomenal. But one of their main strengths in what was land battles was their skirmish cavalry was so cost effective, and I think it's a lot less influential in Domination. It's still very powerful, but it's not quite on the same level where you can just kind of kite someone all day. There is objectives to get to, and for that alone, greenskins come down like a tiny bit for me. But due to the fact they have versatility all across the board, as well as Grom, who's just so good at bouncing around, regenerating, I'm actually going to pop them in the A tier.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's definitely like they're in that ballpark. They have a lot of the good quality infantry that you kind of discussed, and quality infantry seems to be a pretty important aspect of Domination. They have the the ITP Black Orcs. They have Biggins, Savage Orc Biggins. Although Savage Orc Biggins, I haven't been seeing them as much due to the prevalence of a lot of magic damage we've been seeing. But overall. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, the one more thing that someone in chat's just reminding me, actually, Jonas, there is also one of the weaknesses of greenskins is their cavalry's not particularly great, realistically. And though infantry is the main focus on Domination, I think fast and powerful cavalry is also quite good. So that's also why I'm kind of taken away from that S tier.
Yeah, I hear you on that. In something that I'm sure both of you guys have had some success with is Cav have recently had a capture weight buff, if I'm not mistaken. So like a lot of things like, and we've also seen speed buffs to Cav. So we're seeing like Kislev, Empire, all these like heavy Cav factions that are certainly doing quite a bit better. Even Grand Cathay, like Enticity, you probably noticed that as well, right? Like the Peasant Horsemen, the Jade Lancers, like being able to actually like take side objectives. So I think that, yeah, Cav certainly carries a lot more weight. And do the Wolf Riders have the expendable trait? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
I do have the game just open now. They do have expendable.
So they're not going to be... Do Spider Riders have it, or just the Wolf Riders?
Just the Wolf Riders.
So there could certainly be some really strong tactics for Greenskins of like using like mass amounts of Spider Riders to just like swamp objectives, right? Like have like 3 or 4 of them just like snaking things on the side, yeah?
Yeah. On Black Ark for sure. 100%.
And I think that's going to be like the direction we see going forward, right? Of like development for Dom maps. Like I hope we start to see more, because I mean, have you guys played like 80% of your games on Black Ark? Or is it just me?
Like over 50% for sure.
Yeah, mine's probably roughly 50%. I really do like that map quite a bit. I'm also maybe a bit more controversial. I am also a fan of the other map people don't show as much, but
oh yeah, that one's interesting. Like I really didn't like it at first, but it does make for some interesting fights and really differentiates like army comps. Like I had a couple games where we were seeing like depth guard and like, you know, bloated corpses running through the trees, and just like it actually made for some really interesting games for sure.
Yeah, it just mixes it up a little bit and forces players to use different types of tactics, which is kind of what I like about the Domination maps, that they've now got some larger open ones as well as the more confined ones, because your map actually kind of matters now, which is nice.
It does. And all right, so for my rating for the Greenskins, I'm probably going to give them a B+. Like in my experience, I find that I mean, of course, they do have some good anchoring units like the Black Orcs and the, you know, the Biggins and whatnot to play the objectives, but I feel like they are a little bit trickier to play. And Rubber Duck had some really, really excellent points about many of their strengths in Warhammer 2 pertaining to their skirmishing units like Spider Rider archers and all that stuff. Really, really being incredibly strong, right? Being able to draw out the battle and then eventually engage when things were opportune. But I found them a little bit harder to play. Like in Warhammer 2, I felt pretty confident going into a land battle with the Greenskins and feeling like I was very much in control. But for myself, I found that the Greenskins in Domination have been a little bit trickier. Some flimsy leadership can, of course, be tough, especially against some of the new demon factions. I've had pretty good success against them with Khorne and also even with Slaanesh. But overall, I would still say they're a really strong faction. I mean, I think Grom the Paunch is going to be very, very good, as he always has been. Probably going to be one of the premier lord choices. Grimgor maybe niche in some matchups against like Sigvald or something like that. But yeah, overall, I would say B+. I think that their solid infantry makes them a higher tier faction. Their mobility and ability to steal side points and having some speed. Also, good Vanguard options like Night Goblins can get over there and cause problems. And Enticity, could you check if Night Goblins have expendable? I don't think they do they?
Yeah, they do.
Ooh, that's rough.
Fanatic ones do too, yeah.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, expendable infantry have a capture weight of 2, if I'm not mistaken? Is that what it is?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so they like two expendable infantry can still outcap 1 regular infantry, if I'm not mistaken, or do they match it? Are infantry or capture weight 4, correct?
Wait, no, it should be 3, 4 and 3.
Got it. So two expendable can outcap 1 basic infantry, but yeah, overall for myself, I'd probably give Greenskins a B+. I think they have really good infantry, solid lore choices, good mobility, plenty of Vanguard options, and even if they are expendable, things like Nasty Skulkers and other things can, you know, play the side points and certainly can wrestle the objectives from things. And again, plenty of mobile options to really swamp. And even if like things like Wolf Riders are expendable, you could still send like 3 of them for 900 gold, use 1 as a roadblock, the other 2 can pressure objectives. And, you know, again, Domination in many ways isn't about just stealing objectives and playing the objectives. It's often about trading as well. And Greenskins, as we know, are very good at trading from Warhammer 2. But I wouldn't quite put them as like the highest tier factions, but I still think they deserve a solid B+. So what are your thoughts, Enticity? What are you thinking, man?
C+ for them.
C+? All right, let's hear it, man.
Yeah. Way lower. Here's my hot take. All right.
I love it, dude. You're like the
Fanatics.
Yeah, this is great.
Got nerfed heavily. So you can't aim their like you can aim the Fanatics, but it's the old aiming system, the really janky just point and shoot. So you can't just delete armored infantry. They do still have like the chariots and such, but like everything's very expendable. And And honestly, even though I think the faction is good, there's so many factions I think are way better that we'll see in this list that I think C plus is a lot more fitting. So once we get to those factions, I guess I can elaborate more. But like when I actually laid out the list, there's like a lot of factions I think would do better than greenskins. Also, they route off the point all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I see some sad was in chat for sure. There's some sad greenskin enjoyers who are seeing the C plus coming from you. I love it.
C plus is still pretty good. You can get some wins.
I'm really eager to see who you rate as the worst faction, but I guess you guys will have to stay and wait around to see that. But I have my opinions, but I'm curious, man.
Everyone knows. Everyone should know what the worst faction is.
Who's been your favorite lord for the greenskins? Has it been like Grom the Paunch? Has he been the man for you?
I've literally only picked Grom the Paunch. I'm so vanilla.
No, what about Skarsnik? You gotta give the little gobbo some love.
No, it's Grom the Paunch. I run Pit of Shades as my only spell.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I would play vampire counts if people didn't ask me not to.
You know, that's the funny thing is like every single set of games I played with most people, like they're like, yeah, let's not play vampire counts today. That's not fun. So like it's kind of hard to draw like a meta conclusion based on our experience because we just like aren't getting the reps with those, you know?
Yeah. It's just like a handful of games.
Yeah. Well, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for my favorite faction of the game, the Sons of Sigmar, going deep, mustaches galore. Rubber Duck, what do you got for our beloved humans here?
So when I initially got my hands on the game, I thought Empire were going to be pretty like impressive in Domination, because of the kind of a lot of similar stuff as the Greenskins. Like they're a well fleshed out faction. They have slightly worse infantry than Greenskins, which is quite a problem in Domination, but better cavalry. So I was like, hey, maybe this is going to balance out quite a bit. Volkmar the Grimm as well, I thought was going to be just a god of war, being able to take people off objectives easily. He can drop banishments, but I actually struggled a lot more with Empire than I thought I was going to. And I think it comes down to the fact that infantry just routes so often that it's a bit of a nightmare to actually keep them on the objectives. And the cavalry, though decent, you know, like Empire Knights, not really big damage dealers, and they're not even that fast either, so you don't really want your cavalry sitting on objectives and trying to defend and hold them. But they are useful if you can basically camp the opponent's spawn, move them out there and like box the opponent in. But despite the fact they're really versatile as the Greenskins almost, I'm actually going to put them a bit lower than the Green Boys. I'm going to put them at a B, simply due to the fact I've not personally managed to make their infantry work anywhere as well as I thought it would do.
So could you repeat the ranking again? I missed that part.
Oh, sorry, yeah. I'm going to put them at B.
A B. Perfect.
Yes.
All right, let's line this up so it looks good. And yeah, you know, I kind of feel like I'm in a similar boat with the Empire. Like, if they didn't buff the heavy cav, and also Empire cav got a speed buff. Like, a lot of their cav, I believe, have like speed in the 70s now. Empire Knights used to be 66. Knights of the Blazing Sun, I think, were a little bit faster in the low 70s. But I think with the speed buff to the cav, like Empire is, for me, probably a B faction as well. I think I'm going to have to agree with you on that. Some decent lore choices. I think that Volkmar the Grimm is really, really disruptive. He's very, you know, I wouldn't say he's similar to Sigvald in that way, but like typically you can have your backfield objective and you can have Volkmar pushing up in the middle. You can use the heavy cav to either value trade or play side objectives. And, you know, I feel like Empire can play a kind of a dynamic playstyle, you know, jack of all trades sort of thing. So I think that's kind of what keeps them from being like A tier. And like you see these really strong factions in current Warhammer 3, which are like, you know, Khorne and Nurgle doing very well due to their ability for these persistent pushes and just capture weight. But things have changed quite a bit. I think we're going to be seeing, well, again, with the, you know, the Warriors of Chaos and all that, everything's kind of up in the air. But for me, I would give Empire a B as well. I think the infantry is a little bit flimsy, so it can make it tricky to hold on to points. Granted, you do have things like flagellants, but they do tend to die very quickly. Good lore choices, good mobility. I think grenade launchers are extremely good. Like grenade launchers, their cheap missiles can be decent for playing that kind of, we should call it the Enticity style of play, I suppose, where you have this massive, massive wall of bows kind of in this staggered formation moving up with heavy cav supporting. I feel like that playstyle is very good, but I feel like Empire is, and I almost want to rate them a little bit higher, like B+. I'm kind of like up there, but the reason why I put Greenskins a little bit higher than them is because I think that the Greenskins with solid, sustainable infantry are a little bit easier to play, whereas Empire is a very, very hard faction to play. Flimsy leadership in many regards, high micro with a lot of the cav, so you have to constantly be riding about, microing, cycle charging. There's a lot to handle. So due to the difficulty to play flimsy infantry, but still a very dynamic roster with good lord choices and a great range of magic as well. Like whatever the OP flavor of the month is with magic, with the Empire, you can take that. Right? You can get that. You can get the Pit of Shades. You can get the Pendulum if it were still OP. You can get the Death Magic, Life, whatever. Like, you can get it all. So, I would say B tier. Like, I think they're going to struggle against, like, the higher tier factions. Like, Empire in Warhammer 2, for me, always struggled against armor, right? Dealing with, like, armored pushes. And, you know, as we're probably now going to be getting more armor on many of the Chaos factions, I think they're going to struggle even more. But I probably wouldn't want to put them as a C tier. And that might be my bias as an Empire main, but that's just my 2 cents. So B tier for me. Enticity, what do you have for us for the Sons of Sigmar?
Yeah, I was really hoping you would rate them higher just because you have, like, you found some special strats with them. No. Yeah, I also have not really found anything. It's like, you know, they got the Pistoliers, which are nice. They got, oh, man. I guess,
that's all you say? Come on, man. You got to give more than that. You got Volkmar.
I don't know. I can't make them work. Like it's. Oh man! In every game that I've played as them, it's been a pretty big struggle. More than the greenskins. I think we're all just gonna put Empire as less than the greenskins. They're like a C- for me.
Oh, yeah. Sigmar does not bless this. That is certainly rough.
I'm just gonna rate every faction as like.
See, yeah. Have you found success with like Empire Heavy Cav though? Like I feel like those kind of builds, like Empire Volkmar followed up by like Heavy Cav pressuring, he can get like great shock damage and force multiplying effects. And Free Company Militia are also quite good with the Vanguard deployment and like a little bit of variance against some of the light armored demons. Like I feel like they can be good too, right?
Yeah, like it sounds like it's just Bretonia with extra steps, you know?
Yeah.
Without questing knights too.
And I guess a lot of it's map dependent too, right? Like if you're on a map like Black Ark, you can even play a little bit of artillery and do some decent value trading with that. But that's the problem. Like there's factions that we're going to get to later that are just, in my opinion, ubiquitously good on every single map. Doesn't matter if it's Black Ark, Galleon's Cove, like, you know, brawler maps. They don't need line of sight. They're just good across the board. The Empire is like, I think I would even rate Empire a little bit higher, maybe on like a Black Ark type map. But if you take them on brawler maps, I think they're going to struggle for sure.
Yeah. I think the line of sight on those maps is crazy.
Enticity with the steel chair on Sigmar. I love it. But hey, that's probably not your lowest ranking, right?
Oh yeah, no, it gets worse.
It gets much worse.
It gets much worse. I love it. All right, Rubber Duck, it's time for Bretonia for the lady. What are you thinking, man?
So Bretonia's a weird one. I've not actually played, I don't think, in Domination as Bretonia myself, but I faced Bretonia.
Okay.
And it's so tough knowing where to rate them because I feel like in the hands of an average player, I would put them down somewhere as like a C to C minus. But if you give them to someone like Enticity, who knows how to use Cav to harass your spawn, all of a sudden they bump up like a couple of places. Mm-hmm. Because they've got some of the best Cav in the game. Question Knights are awesome and can really use their mobility and speed. Peasants, again, I've not found that great just because expendable, and unlike something like zombies, they're going to run away, so they tend to just kind of flee in droves. But you do have a load of men-at-arms as well to kind of pack a little bit of a punch. You got loads of strong characters, loads of mobility. I actually quite like the King in this matchup, rather than Faye. I know Faye's been like very popular through the majority of Warhammer 2, but she really does not suit the much more open kind of battlefield of a Domination game. So, better Cav than Empire, pretty much worse everywhere else. The Lords are a bit even, so I'm going to put them at a C+.
And a C+ for the lady. I do enjoy it. I feel like everyone's going to be like a B from me. That's just kind of like the territory I've been in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I certainly agree with many points on your analysis. Bretonia, like, I feel if they didn't nerf expendable infantry, I would rate Bretonia a little bit higher. That's like one of the big issues. Like, you have foot squires and you have battle pilgrims, but I think, are the men-at-arms with polearms expendable as well? Can you check that, Enticity, if you have the game open?
Well, all the men-at-arms.
Yeah, okay.
They are all expendable.
So we're just
hurts.
So for me, I'm going to be giving Bretonia a C myself. I feel like the Empire is a little bit stronger than them in my experience. Like having the prevalence of powder and with the buffs to the Empire cav speed, I don't feel like that they're that far behind Bretonnia in terms of cav. And Empire actually has pretty good shot cav in many ways, right? Like, so if you want like Knights of the Blazing Sun, they have good shot cav. Whereas if you want like really good Bretonian shot cav, I mean, Knights of the Realm can kind of dual purpose it with their anti-large, but overall, yeah, like the Bretonian expendable infantry thing, like having all their peasants be such low leadership and just getting buckled off objectives, it really kind of makes them like one-dimensional in terms of their cav. I mean, you still can abuse the Fey Enchantress. Like, I feel like you can use her with these like Death Stars and the Paladins and get good value on and win big point fights with that. But overall, the expendable infantry, it's hard, and it really puts a lot of weight on your cav, which I think that good players will adapt to, knowing that that's going to be the epicenter of your strategy. I've had a couple testing games where I have played Bretonnia against either Chaos or Khorne, and they just spam like halberds at you, and it's very, very tough to deal with. I mean, you can, but it's so much more work for the Bretonian player. I personally felt like I had a little bit more of a dynamic field of options when I was playing the Empire compared to Bretonnia. Like with Bretonnia, I always felt like I was kind of pigeonholed into the cav. But again, you still can go mass infantry with like peasant archers, Fey Enchanters with a couple supporting cav, and it's not bad. But I really felt I struggled against the armor, and even against factions like Slaanesh with Bretonnia, I found I was like kind of struggling with their faster cav. Like I'd have my Knights of the Blazing Sun, but against really good players, they'll typically use the 100 speed Slaanesh cav to outmaneuver you, pull you into spears, countercharge you, drag you down. It felt very, very tough for sure. So I'm going to give them a C. So Enticity, what do you got for the for the lady here?
All right. So I think if you really lean into the filthy strategies, all right.
Let's hear it.
So
dude.
Fey Enchantress, double Paladin,
okay,
all on the ground, and this is like the only combo you bring.
It's the only thing they can do. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's fine. Because what are people gonna do about it?
Yeah.
So you have 9 mobile capture weight. That's like 1.5 capture kitties in the build that we have on live right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't go for the infantry. You take mounted yeomen because they don't have expendable. So it's cheap 400 gold full capture weight.
That's not bad.
I'm not hearing any amount of impressiveness.
Well, I did. I thought you were going to say something more, so I was just like waiting to let you finish. But yeah, I mean,
that's the entire strategy.
That seems good.
I think the cavalry is good. Yeah.
You did really well with him against me. We had a game where, do you remember our Kislev versus Bretonnia game? Where you kind of did that. You had this like massive cav blob that was like moving around and just like stealing my objectives against my more staggered infantry based army, and it worked pretty well. But would you say that's like the only way you found success with Bretonnia? Like, is that like their one gimmick? And if so, I feel like people will be able to adapt to that said gimmick, right?
Like, if they know you're going mass cavalry, your only other option is like, I don't know, I guess foot squires, the peasant bowmen. Like, I still won't rate them high.
Mm-hmm.
I would put them higher than Empire though, and give them a proper C, because I think Empire, like the one way you really want to lean into is probably the heavier cavalry style.
Yeah.
And then I think Bretonnia just does that a little bit better with the single entities.
Got it. Yeah, and I feel like Empire and Bretonnia are kind of in a similar ballpark for sure. Of course, Empire has like some powder units and whatnot. So your final answer is going to be C for the Bretonians, yeah?
Yeah.
That's tricky, man. Now, what would you, but for both of you guys, for Rubberduck and for Enticity, what would you two rank Bretonnia if the expendable infantry change was like reverted for them? Like if the men-at-arms actually had good capture weight, would you immediately like throw them up to a B?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I would say that, or if Creative Assembly puts out wider maps, like if we get an MP Crossroads, I think Bretonnia should be amazing.
They'd be the Terminators. Yeah, dude, imagine seeing a Bretonnia versus like a dwarf game on Crossbow with just like 4 great cannons back there blasting. That would just be that'd be wild. But yeah, I think for Bretonnia a big problem is the capture weight of the infantry, but also the fact that the infantry are so flimsy. Like they can get buckled off points really quickly, so they do heavily depend on the capture weight of the cav, which of course is very good. And if we get more maps like a lot of it, we could spend like 10 years being like conspiracy theorists and like going through every single map and rating factions for each map. Like I think Bretonnia, I would probably give them like a B, to a B plus on like Black Ark, but if you put them on like Galleon's Cove or like, you know, any of these like Eye in the North, they're just so much weaker. So really, like maps are a big variable in Domination, I think. So Duck, oh dude, this is all right, guys. Beards and belts. Here's what we got. We have to sacrifice Rubber Duck first, so all the dwarf hate will be directed to his rating here. So
yeah, nice.
So, I would like to say first, I like dwarfs as a faction.
Look at this is great.
They're one of my favorite factions. I still play them. I've played them a lot in LAN battles. Had really fun games with them. As far as Domination goes, I think they are really, really garbage. Like terrible. I think there's one faction maybe that's worse than them, and only because the dwarves counter them. Like really heavily, and I can only speak from my experience. So the problem here is no one wants to play dwarves because everyone is thinking they're so bad. It's kind of like counts but in reverse. So I've not had a huge amount of games to test with them. You would think miners are blasting charges. It's great. We've got a load of people who can flood objectives. We can destroy the enemy chaff. They're just so unbelievably slow. Cannons aren't particularly good on like 90% of the maps, I would say. And particularly now that magic resistance isn't a thing, it's spell resistance. Fighting someone like Khorne is just unwinnable. And I think the dwarves probably have the most unwinnable matchups out of anyone here. I would say I like they have had a buff. Grombrindle has his flash bomb now, so that's going to return to him. And that is huge, but it's huge in LAN battles, because you don't have to fight Grombrindle. Why on earth would you fight any powerful dwarf unit? You just ignore them and hop on the other objectives. And even if you outtrade your opponent, I had a game against Darv, it was me on dwarves, him as Khorne. I was getting more value than him for the first couple of minutes of the battle, and I still wasn't out my deployment zone, and I never got out my deployment zone. You can use Slayers. Yeah, I see someone saying Slayers and they're fast for a dwarf. Slayers are kind of countered by like everyone else's chaff though, and because there's so much infantry, they don't really have that many good targets. There's a few maps you can make them work where you use cannons and so on, but everyone knows you're going to do it. And I think I'm sorry. I'm really sorry, all dwarf fans. I don't know if this is going to be controversial. You guys might have found some dirty tactics with them or something. But they're going to be F+ for me because I love the dwarves deep down. That's why they're getting the plus. But I also think they're better than one other faction.
Dude, I like that. I like the icing. Do you see the poll in chat that we got going right now? You guys see it?
I'm going to vote on Grudge as well. I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I love them, but they're just... I can't personally make them work. There we go, in Domination, but the others may prove me wrong.
Yeah, man. And, I mean, you hit the nail on the head in terms of articulating many of the points. I've had a couple decent games with the Dwarves, but... I feel like the victories I have with them are often just misplaced from my opponents. Like on maps like Death's Pass and Broken Lake Gully, I feel like you can actually kind of play the dwarves. Like on Death's Pass, you can park a decent little gun line to the middle to camp the middle, and then you can like press the side a little bit as well. But overall, like I feel like at the higher levels of play, when you get like really, really like peak players, like let's say we're in the finals of a tournament. We got someone like Enticity versus Houseplant just going ham. Like, I feel like whoever plays the Dwarves is going to be losing more often than winning, like pretty substantially. Like, but I think at the lower levels of play, Dwarves can really, really be like a faction that is good at stomping inexperienced Domination players. Because if like most people, when they first play Domination, they see the center point, they're like, okay, I need to fight over this, right? So they'll go fight the Dwarves. And there's things about Domination that do suit the Dwarves, like having natural choke points on the sides, like on Broken Lake Gully and Death's Pass, where you can't be flanked. I mean, how good is that? Like forcing people into chokes, right? But most higher level players will simply just play the sides. And it's such a nightmare. With your speed, like it takes forever to get anything there. And you get roadblocked too. Like people will send cabs to roadblock your troops from getting to objectives. It's rough, man. It's rough. And you know, overall, like looking at all the factions, I don't see anyone that I think is overall gonna struggle more than the Dwarves. So for me, it would probably sadly have to be an F as well. I just they would need some sort of a buff, I think, like whether it be capture weight, like maybe Dwarvish infantry are a little heavier than other factions. I don't know, and they have better capture weight. But I don't want to do this yet because we don't have the data, right? Once we start hosting tournaments. We're going to be capturing the win rates of each faction on Total Tavern, so we'll be able to see like how they're actually doing. And I hope somebody can like innovate with them, but really I just feel like they're one of the weakest factions. That's not to say they can't win. I think on Death's Pass and Broken Lake Gully, they have good matchups against some other factions. who are also a little bit slower. But overall, I think they're going to be one of the weaker factions for sure. So, so that's my 2 cents. Enticity, what do you got for us, man?
Yeah. It's pretty clear. We played a match pretty early on where it was like I was dwarves against your counts.
Oh my god!
I'm pretty sure, even if their infantry had infinite capture weight, I still would have lost.
Dude,
just because
that game was crazy. Yeah. Oh my god, Enticity was up by like almost 10,000 value against my vampire counts. It was like 9 or 10,000, and the counts still won the game. It was just like the most absurd match ever. Yeah, that was crazy, man.
Oh boy, yeah. Because here the thing is, dwarves are slower than Nurgle. It's terrible. Because Nurglings have Vanguard like miners, but they're way faster. And then if you want emergency units, like if you take a look even in land battles, a lot of the thing that they relied on was the air squad. They would take gyrocopters, gyro bombers, and like sort of just build like not full build roulette, but try to hope that their opponent didn't have as many anti-air counters and they can make good use of those. Yeah. But now just like a couple reserves and they're doomed. So if you have like 2,000 supplies in the bank and there's a battle going on, you can summon like any unit you summon is just going to be there like 3 minutes later. Yeah. Oh man, it's so much suffering. But I think in some matchups they might have a bit of a decent chance, because where in land battles they could get surrounded like against Lizardmen, now they won't. So like imagine like on an Arnheim map and Lizardmen are trying to push into dwarves, except your flanks are fully secured, so no skinks are slipping around, right?
Yeah.
And you're only down a little bit of money. You have the Longbeards to really hold. That would be like a really nice trade in a land battle. So maybe there's something there, and because of that tiny amount of hope, I'll give them a plus on top of their F. But
I thought you were going to go for a D. I thought
no, it's just suffering. They're usable rosters like less than the demon factions, like as they are right now. It's so sad.
I thought you were trying to escape the book there for a second. I thought you were gonna like give him a D just to like contrast with us, so you would not be in the book. But yeah, you're there with us. Yeah. And again, you guys both raised amazing points, man. It's just like on some maps, I think they can be functional. I think at the very least, we'll probably see dwarfs as an extremely niche counterpick that certain specialists like to play. There are some factions in the game that don't really have good anti-air or any like flying units really. So gyrocopters like can be okay on some maps. Like I've had success using a gyro bomber, but overall just very, very tough to play. And yeah, people saying we need some goat cav, or I don't think that's a thing. Are there like in Warhammer Fantasy? I don't think the dwarves have any mounts, right?
No, that's Lord of the Rings. I think that's the Hobbit movies where they have the goat cav. I don't know if that's even in that kind of lore, but it's
somewhere once in Warhammer lore. I think they like sort of like their stone rune golem things. It's like technically
they've got a few more things that have been mentioned in lore, which we haven't seen yet, but they are kind of quite obscure in the lore, I think, now.
So hear me out. What do you guys think about this for dwarves? Dwarves get a Zeppelin unit, and the Zeppelin unit can pick up units on the ground and ferry them. So it drops like Navy SEAL ropes, and the dwarves can like climb up it like a ladder, and then you can like fly them around the map and drop them off. How wouldn't that just be the coolest thing? That actually like is lore friendly too, right?
If it didn't have an animation like in StarCraft.
Oh yeah.
Then no, I want it to be bugged or something, where you can just instantly drop miners, unleash just a disgusting volley, pick up and run away.
So like they're like throwing blasting charges from the side of the blimp as they go. Oh, that would be
we really need Iron Drakes hanging on the side of gyrocopters. Just like fire as they go by,
Just wearing like
gyrocopters and we're set.
Wearing like 1,000 pounds of like mithril plate, just like swinging from ropes.
Yeah, 100%.
No, but all jokes aside, like I feel if Creative Assembly, like, look in Warhammer, in the Age of Sigmar, they have the Carriage-on Overlords, which are dwarves that fly around in transport blimps and are dropped like that. Like, I feel like it wouldn't be that big of a stretch because in the Gotrek and Felix books, there's a character now named Malachi, he's a dwarf engineer character, and he's also a slayer. He's super cool. He's an engineer slayer. So he builds a giant blimp that actually transports the dwarves to the Chaos Wastes where they go on this like mission. And I really actually feel like that could happen. Like if they made it, and let's say that the blimp has to land. So you just land it like you would any other flying units. You move an infantry unit inside of it. And then you just like go back up in the sky, and you can like imagine having a dwarven sweeper unit. Like it's flying around the battlefield. It has some iron breakers in it, and you can like, oh, they're threatening this objective. Boom, let's ferry the dwarves over there. Like that would be the coolest thing ever, I think.
Yep, that would be amazing.
Now, Lich109 in chat, thank you for the donation. Also to you, John Stamos, as well. Appreciate that. Lich109 saying, and I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. Dwarves should be able to have miners come out of the ground, and in doing so, they create a new Vanguard spawn point on that point. So that's, I believe, how they worked in tabletop. Like dwarven miner infantry could actually like appear across the battlefield because they like tunnel underneath. Like I would be down for that. Like I don't think that would be that OP or anything.
Well, you had to like roll a d6. And there's a chance that they would never show up. So I think that also transfer.
Like the Skaven just appear in the tunnels and shank them on their way? Is that kind of how that goes down?
That'd be so good. Like you accidentally summon like an AI-controlled unit of Skaven slaves or something.
Oh my gosh.
You unleash the Warren. Yeah, well...
I actually like the idea, though. Like, it's a good idea. I think it would have to be an army ability rather than every unit of miners being able to do it. But, yeah, it'd be cool.
Did you guys play StarCraft?
Oh, yeah,
I didn't know. I think Enticity.
So you know the Nidus Canal, right?
Oh my gosh!
Like, what if dwarves just get a Nidus Canal? Like that's what Lich was kind of suggesting here. Like they get like they create a tunnel entrance, and then they can like go maybe like every couple minutes they can send a unit through it, like one unit, right? Like I actually think that would be a super badass army ability that both multiplayer people would enjoy, and I think campaign people would love that too. Like who wouldn't want to like have dwarves tunnel under a siege and like appear in the back? Like I think that'd be really cool.
Just becoming Skaven.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. In the lore, dwarves fight Skaven in the tunnels all the time. Like Ironbreakers, I think it's Ironbreakers. They're the ones who are designed to fight in tunnels against Skaven. They just like are moving through the tunnels and throwing like explosives down the Skaven rat's nest, and that's like the whole lore of them. So, like, I don't see that being an issue. Like, anyways, yeah, we could just go on about how to buff the dwarves all day, but we'll move on to the next one. Wood Elves, Rubber Duck. What do you? Where do you think our Wood Elves are at?
Yeah, Wood Elves are a really interesting one. I've had a lot of fun playing around with Wood Elves and trying out different tactics and so on. I think overall the Wood Elves are in a slightly weaker position than they were in Warhammer 2, just because physical resistance means a lot less now because there's bucket tons of magical attacks literally everywhere.
Yeah.
But you saw a surprising amount of versatility with the Wood Elves. Like, you can go mass range, you can go mass infantry, you got a big lord like Durfu who can tank. Treekin, I like these kind of almost secret sleeper hits for me, where initially no one ever really bought Treekin, but I think they're pretty good here. Not really for sitting on objectives, but sitting on choke points. I found they just don't budge at all. Had some really fun games. I think it was against Samurai Warrior where I used them to hold back like hordes of beastmen that were trying to get through. But much like Bretonia, my main thing with the Wood Elves is it's kind of hard to grade them because in the hands of a real top tier player, I think they're going to be fantastic because their backline harass is almost second to none. They got incredibly swift cavalry, infantry can be really fast, but they are so micro intensive, and that only gets harder on domination from land battles for me because there's a lot more going on. You're also worrying about objectives, and the maps tend to be quite a lot bigger with small engagements kind of all over the battlefield, which also unfortunately makes a lot of kind of skirmish range a little less powerful. Stuff like Way Watchers I wouldn't bring really on domination because it's so much harder to protect them against mass cavalry and so on. So it's a little bit tricky, honestly, knowing where to place them. I'm gonna go for C+, like the Bretonia. I think they've got a bit more holding power with the Treekin and other units, but their cavalry is slightly weaker, though swifter. But C+, because I think you have to be a really good player to pull it off. Anything less than great, you're going to struggle with them, I think.
Copy that, man. And I agree on many points. My initial analysis of the Wood Elves, so I actually did like a tier list before, like a speculative tier list, but where I had Wood Elves as an A. But now after playing them a couple times, I do feel like they kind of get canned in the infantry game across the board a bit. I find that Dryads are losing a lot of fights that I expected them to win. Eternal Guard have obviously been a pretty decent staple. I mean, good armor piercing, relatively good leadership, but still lightly armored. Wood Elf Cav is very good. Plenty of great Vanguard options with missiles. But for me, I would probably rate the Wood Elves as a B-. Like, I have personally found that I would rather play the Empire and like the Greenskins. I find them to just be a little bit more stable for me. But again, that is a lot of my bias because I'm an Empire. I was an Empire main, still am. But overall, like I feel like the Wood Elves are very tough to play. There's a lot of micro that goes into it. They're pretty squishy across the board. Like personally, I found that Dark Elves are easier to play. Just spamming like Dark Elf infantry, like Bleak Swords and or Dread Spears. You know, pulling in some of the Scourge Hunter chariots. They have like decent cav and whatnot. Feels very good. Feels very, very good to play Dark Elves. But anyways, we'll get onto that next. But for me, I'm going to be giving Wood Elves a B-. I think there's a lot that the Wood Elves that hasn't been tapped yet. Like I feel like once we get these like Wood Elf tyrants on them, and the game actually does come out, the Immortal Empires, like I feel like they could be bumped up to a B+ or even an A. But my anecdotal experience so far has been like more in the B- territory. So that would be it for me. So what do we got from you, Enticity?
Yeah, Wood Elves are a really weird one. I remember before I was really excited about them because of like Way Watchers, you can use all your ammo, de-summon. It's a 600 gold reload and they're usually so cost efficient. But because Domination doesn't allow you to always get optimal shots off, they do so much worse than you would think.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, but they do they have a lot of things going for them. I think like Sisters of Twilight are amazing. Still, just their like sniping ability is just some of the best in the game. They got healing, great cavalry. It's like slightly lower than Bretonia cavalry, but they have like a lot of options. But I agree with you guys that their infantry really just sort of crumble. And the biggest thing I could see them that I don't think I've really seen explored yet is sort of a mass Glade Guard build, where because they can move and shoot, so they're one of the few range units that can actually take a point, while also doing damage too. So maybe there's something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would put them. Oh man, it would either be like a B- or C+. Yeah, because like once you actually I think before when Treekin and Dryads had 6 capture weight, that like I would have rated them way higher, but now Treekin can't really steal points anymore, so there's not really much that you can do there. So I would say I would give them a C+. I'll give them a C+. I don't think like we'll be seeing Wood Elves as sort of like a common pick. It'll be there for like the hardcore mains like Zyphos and Loopy.
Yeah.
But yeah, not really anywhere else. At least I don't think so. I'm ready to be proven wrong by like a crazy Glade Guard build.
Yeah, I think there will be some folks, like you mentioned, like those Wood Elf mains who will certainly do their best to prove us wrong, and they could be. Like, it could emerge as a powerhouse faction or maybe a niche counterpick faction, maybe map-specific, with a lot of... They do have good Vanguard options, right? Like, I think Dryads are Vanguard, even though they don't trade super well, and they have a lot of Vanguard Cav. Like, they have a lot of tricky options, but I agree with both of you guys in that. Like, I've always felt like I've been, like, on the back foot a little bit with them. It hasn't felt, like super smooth, and guys, thank you for the donations. 3 of my favorite Total War and PvP streamers doing a podcast. Hot damn. Thank you, Modest. Appreciate that. And now we will be moving on to the Dark Elves. So Dark Elves have certainly, I think, been a big performer. RubberDuck, what has been your opinion of the Dark Elves?
Yeah, so Dark Elves are one of those factions I've seen quite a few games of people playing with them rather than experiencing them myself, because I was never the biggest fan of Dark Elves. But I've been impressed with quite a few of their units. They've just got a load of cheap chaff that you can throw forward, which isn't something I would normally say about an elf faction. But Bleak Swords tend to trade relatively well. Dark Riders are fantastic just due to how cheap and fast they are. And I think you've done a couple of videos on him by now, but Malice Darkblade is my boy now. I love Malice. He's so tanky. I think he's like way better than he was before now. Marafi's got a little bit weaker, which I don't personally mind myself because I think she was quite like oppressive in Warhammer 2. I know a lot of people kind of claimed she was what made them competitive, but I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit jaded of seeing Marathi kind of over and over again.
Yeah.
But I still think the Dark Elves suffer from being elves, which means their faction as a whole, though they've got some more cheap options than Wood Elves and High Elves, is still quite expensive for what it does, and still quite glass cannon. And I expected, when I was coming into Domination with all these factions, the glass cannon factions to do pretty good, because they tend to be fast and hard-hitting, but it's almost been the reverse, actually. I've seen a lot of the tankier factions, or more of the middle ground factions, perform a lot better. So Dark Elves, it's tricky. The majority of the games I've seen, they've actually lost. But I think they maybe have a slight edge over the Wood Elves. Oh, it's tricky. I'm going to put them at a B-, I think. I think they're just a bit better than the Elves because their cheap infantry tends to trade a lot better than Dryads and Eternal Guard.
Very good. Yeah, and I've had many similar experiences with Malice, dude. He is... I think I played at least 3 or 4 games with Enticity where his Malice is just beating the brakes off like half my army. And just... I've had games myself where I played with him, and he gets like 4,000 or 5,000 value. Like he can outscale the damage he takes in demon form now. Like he just, I don't think I've had a single game where he's actually taken himself out with his demonic effect. Like he is really, really good. Also, there was a buff to Bleak Swords, so Dark Elf baseline infantry are very, very cost effective. I would say Scourge Runner chariots are amazing. I think that Dark Riders are very good. Coldwood Knights I haven't seen too much action with. Also, I've seen the meta shift away a little bit from the repeater crossbows. Granted, still very much on the table. But yeah, this is a hard one. Like, have we had any A tier? I think the only person who's given an A today is actually RubberDuck on the Greenskins. Yeah, like I almost want to put Dark Elves up there because I feel like Dark Elves are actually a little bit stronger than perhaps the Greenskins, which is weird because they were such like Greenskins were such a hard counter to them in Warhammer 2. You know what? This is going to be my first hot take of the day. This is going to be my first hot take, and I'm probably going to like go back on this one in like a month after we see them in action. But with Malice and the Bleak Sword buff, like good, decent mobile cav, I'm actually going to give them an A-. We're going for it, man. That's my hot take. It's happening. It's happening.
A-.
Yeah, we're doing it.
Oh my gosh.
Look, we got to give Dark Elf fans something to cheer about. They've been in the Dark Ages for a long time. This is a hot take, though. Admittedly, I was leaning more towards like a B. But like I honestly felt when I played the Dark Elves that they were a smoother experience in Domination for me than the Empire was. Like a little bit easier to play, I suppose. Maybe that's because of the buff to some of the Bleak Swords and whatnot. But yeah, we're gonna go A-. What do you got, Enticity?
Ooh, all right, man. Yeah, I looked ahead on the factions we're covering. This is gonna be pessimistic first, a little half. Anyways, spoilers. The Dark Elves, I've been trying them out a lot of games. I think there could be something with the Bleak Swords. Sort of just spam that in Spears, sort of like Slanesh Marauder style. Malice is great. They have a Pillar Legendary Lord. Pretty good cavalry. I will still... The thing is, you played a game, your Empire against my Dark Elves. And if I'm rating Empire with the C-, and I think you're a good Empire player, so I would only put Dark Elves a little bit higher than that.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe the question is, are they greenskin tier?
Will this be your first B today? Is this happening?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Let's see. Yeah, I think... Let's see, do they match up to greenskins? Okay, yeah, no. the more I look at it, the more I see definitely not. They're a C. They're a full-on C, you know. Malice is like, I actually ran some tests on Malice. He doesn't solo half an army, even in optimal circumstances. So he's actually, I rate him about as strong as some of the strongest lords we have in the game right now. Sort of like, you know, Sigvald tier and that level, maybe like Gromish tier, maybe a bit higher than them. So I don't think he'll hard carry. Yeah, I'm like pretty happy with the C.
Yeah, no, it's fair play, man. Those are the safe picks.
Ordering, man.
Yeah, you gotta keep the okay. I think your highest one has been the Wood Elves and the Greenskin so far. Yeah, but yeah, like Dark Elves, I'm really interested to see how they develop. Like, I mean, they do have some haggard units that'll probably never see any play. They have like some dead roster. Like, I don't think Medusas will ever see play in Domination. Nor do I think that we'll see like the Blood Rack Shrines and all those different things like that. But I feel like Malice Bleak Sword, Dark Elf Cav is like a really, really good staple in a lot of matchups. But I wonder, have you played Dark Elves, either of you guys, into like the demon factions? Like, what has been your experience playing like Dark Elves into Khorne, for example? Or like, I feel like they might not have a terrible matchup there.
Played him. Well, I guess I'll start first. I played him against Chaos. I played him against Slaanesh. Slaanesh terrorized me. It was just I got rolled over instantly. And against Chaos, there were like 4 spawn that took me the entire game to kill. Oh man, the Scourgewonder chariots are really good, but they only finish the job by the end of the battle. Yeah. Although, like, I don't know, have you guys experimented with like the newly buffed dragons? Maybe black dragons are just like crazy OP now.
I feel like it's such a trap. I don't know, RubberDuck. Have you used dragons?
Okay.
Okay.
I like the buffs to the dragons, don't get me wrong. But I still feel like they're just going to get surrounded and kind of dragged down.
That's probably the worst feeling ever, is when you bring a dragon and it just gets like caught by like a Glade Rider or like a Dark Rider and it just can't escape and it just dies. Like, you're like, how the hell is my dragon even dying here? It's just like, oh, they're so bad. Dragons are...
Breath attacks are weaker now because they can't one-shot infantry from ultra size.
Yeah, it's weaker, right, because it's not quite as effective against the increased model count. Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like dragons are just terrible. What were the buffs they even got? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
It's like plus 700 plus 700 HP, and then their mass increased from like a light war sled to a heavy war sled.
Yeah,
roughly.
Yeah, they're so janky. Like, ground-based monsters are so much better too in Dom because they have better capture weight too. Like, obviously for talking land battles, like, dragons have more of a niche because they can snipe and just cycle charge and, you know, abuse the fact that there's no engagement rules. But or there are well, you guys get what I'm saying. But yeah, it's tricky in Dom to make dragons work. But here's another one. High Elf mains. Are they going to be given some hope? RubberDuck?
Well, I'll start with the good news for the High Elf mains out there. I think they've gained like a fantastic matchup. I don't know if you guys have tried High Elves versus Tzeentch, but I feel like I could teach my 3-year-old cousin to like beat Tzeentch. Like, if Felcon was controlling Tzeentch, he could probably take him on. Like, I think it's an incredible matchup for High Elves now, simply because they can't kill like certain units on the High Elf roster. Martial prowess being buffed as well is like super nice, and that's like across the board, making you far more tanky. But the bad news for High Elves is I think they're the worst elf faction in Domination, unless you go some super old school cheesy high elf tactics, in which case they can still be pretty good. So I'm talking, lion chariots alongside Alariel, like buffing them up constantly and healing them. I've seen good work be done with that and kind of going mass cavalry, but they're just so expensive for like their holding power, and it doesn't seem to go, at least in my experience. I think I've played like 2 or 3 games with them, and against them, and I think the majority of the time they kind of struggled quite hard. So there are tactics available, but you have to kind of, go down into the dark pits of evil tactics. So for that, I'm going to give them I'm going to be generous and give them a C-. I think they could maybe go into a D+, maybe, but I'm going to go C- because I'm in a good mood.
There you go. All right. So for me, I've actually liked my experiences with High Elves so far. Like, I feel like they have decent quality infantry. Like, I've really been a big fan of White Lions. Like, I feel like with the prevalence of Cav, they trade relatively well into many of the new Shock Cav variants, like Jade Lancers, Empire Knights, whatever it may be on different rosters. I also feel like their lore choices aren't bad. Like, Larry is still as good as ever. Her ability to imbue magic damage with the Boon of Isha is really nice against all the demons. So you can, have her flying over the front line, imbuing magic damage when you're fighting against Khorne, Slaanesh, like whatever, right? So you're going to be able to get that. Silverhelms, Reavers, Dragon Princes, I feel are all pretty decent. So for me, like, I would say that High Elves, I wouldn't quite rate them as good as the Empire, but for myself, I would put High Elves at like a B-. Obviously, they still have many of the same issues as before, in that they're quite expensive and they have many elite units, which can be killed by like a simple Pit of Shades, which pretty much karate chops you in the neck. But for me, I would give High Elves a B-. And, I'm feeling a little bit generous today. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but for me, B-. Like, I've enjoyed them. I feel like they have decent matchups, like, and a bunch of these different ones. And we could go through every single one, but yeah, that's going to take too long. But for me, B-, good quality infantry, decent cav, not bad magic choices. Like, I think High Elves' ability to just bring like a cheap Archmage as well, and just bring like Pit of Shades or whatever flavor of the month there is with Magic in terms of the meta, I think they can do pretty well. But yeah, for me it would be it's either a B- or a C+. Like I'm really torn between that. You know what? God, the more I think about it, they're better than Bretonnia. Are they as good as the Empire? Are they better than the Wood Elves? That's the question. It's tough. I'm just going to go with a B- today. That's what it's going to be for me. So here comes Enticity with the steel chair.
Man, you guys are real pessimistic about the High Elves. Now I feel terrible. So RubberDuck, I agree with you that the High Elves, if you play really filthy with them, there's some potential there. I think Tzeentch though, because Tzeentch is getting like a ton of armor, isn't he?
Oh, I'm talking about like current Tzeentch, if you know what I mean. Like, are you talking about like Tzeentch? Yeah.
Yeah, without the DLC though, it's hilarious how much fire resist you can stack.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think, because I'm not afraid to just play the filthiest High Elf playstyle ever. So, like, High Elves were one of the strongest boxing factions in land battles before.
Oh yeah.
They had the best blobs, and sort of like Fey Enchantress double Paladin, a Lariel on a horse, double Noble. I'm bringing back the Noble meta. Double Warlion chariots with like one cavalry unit. You have like that's like 18 capture weight. That's like a triple snow leopard after the nerfs to capture weight. So what you effectively have is like this just insanely strong goon squad that steals points like wherever, and everyone's gonna hate playing against it. But it's totally gonna work because you just, on any big map, if you just bounce around and steal points, because retaking points is so much slower now, I think you can actually do the worst of both worlds. It would be a single entity blob kite.
Oh god.
That is melee.
Dude, why are you introducing this evil into the world, man? We're just here talking about, they have some white lions are nice, and you're like nobles and Larry on a horse.
Yeah, embrace the chaos. Plus the healing's better on Swordmasters and Phoenix Guard.
Yeah.
So you can blob up with your elite infantry too. I think this is my first B-, guys.
Oh dude.
This is
we actually
only because of that strategy, though.
Yeah, that actually, you mentioned it to me. We played a game which was High Elves vs. Beastmen, and I tried to match her mobility, which didn't work. But I then went and played a game with some other folks using elite High Elf infantry on the what is that map? What is that map called again? The forest one in Domination.
Oh,
the new one.
Something Grove.
Yeah, Grove of Slaughter. Yeah. So I took a Larry build, and I used nobles as well, and just took elite infantry to the center, and like they just were not able to get it. Like you have the good capture weight, you have the sustained healing. Like I think that like High Elves do have potential with degenerate stuff. They've always kind of had that, right? Like,
oh yeah.
What kind of builds did we see in Warhammer 2? You would see like Techless and then like Double Phoenix, or just like stuff like cheesy shit like that. Like High Elves are good at that. But yeah, I feel like they have some hope, man. I feel like they have some hope. Maybe we'll be surprised. Who knows? But now it is time for the Council of 3 here to talk about the Council of 13. RubberDuck.
So
Skaven.
I've been like looking forward a little bit and seeing the factions and how I'm going to judge them and so on. And this is the biggest like flustercluck for me. It's just all of my experiences with Skaven have gone really heavily like amazing or absolutely dreadful. Like there's no middle ground with them whatsoever. They're the weirdest faction I've played. So initially I was like, okay, we're just going to swarm objectives with cheap infantry and almost no one can stop us. And then you realize Skaven don't really like sticking around and fighting, like particularly if the tides turn against them a little bit. So holding objectives is actually a bit of a nightmare. But at the same time, they're relatively flexible in that they can play on pretty much every single map because they have a different strategy for each one. You can sit back and go mass artillery. You can go really fun, like full Eshin builds and try and sneak and grab objectives. It is a little trickier though to go toe-to-toe just infantry on infantry, simply due to how fast your guys break and retreat. So it's been a weird experience to say the least with Skaven. I found their lords tend to do relatively okay still. And Poison Mortars. I don't know if I played them like a while ago, so I don't know if the mortars have been changed heavily. You guys might be able to fill me in on that. They were doing really, really good damage. Like the mortars and the Poison Globadiers, The problem is on domination mode, and I'm going to be saying this a lot with like factions which can be particularly range heavy. I love like a Skaven onion build in land battles. That's what I'm all about. I think it's got so much teeth and you can constantly do these overlapping arcs of fire. It's much harder to sustain that in domination because you're on a lot of the maps forced to split up your army and go in different ways. If Skaven split up, they can get hammered down really quickly by fast moving cavalry. And yeah, I don't know, it's a weird one. It's really hard to judge where they should go because I've had such polarizing experiences with them. So I'm just going to stick them in C, like bang in the middle, because I don't really have a good tell yet on where they're going to land, I think, in the long term. I need to play more games with them.
Yeah, Skaven are a weird one. Like, with the changes to expendable infantry, like, a lot of the theory crafting I had, like, a couple months ago was like, yeah, they're just going to swarm objectives with Skaven slaves and you won't be able to outcap them, but that doesn't really work anymore quite as well, especially, I mean, obviously the leadership is quite low. So they do have issues with leadership and objective holding, but on that same note, they have like many really nasty mechanics. Like you can bring like a Grey Seer on a Bell, which is always a good choice with the dreaded 13th spell to nuke things. And you can also bring like double summons. So you could bring technically triple summons, right? And just have like 1,000,000 Clan Rat summons, 1,000,000 Plague Monk summons, the Elite summon. So on maps with like choke points, if we're talking like the Crossing of the Sea of Claws or Eye in the North, like if somebody's trying to get through a choke point to get to the Skaven objective and you get it first and you abuse the summons, like you can get some really nasty work. On top of that, mortars are pretty good on most maps. Like you don't really need like direct line of sight. On Galleon's Cove, they can basically shoot up and over many of the terrain features, and they can do well. So like, yeah, Skaven are really this interesting like unknown. Like I've played maybe 2 or 3 games with them, have had pretty mixed success. But I think if somebody practices Skaven, somebody like the great Hadries here in chat, they practice Skaven, they really get good at the positioning and micro and domination. I actually feel that Skaven could be a solid B+ faction. They also have decent Vanguard choices like Gutter Runners, Death Runners, the Guando Rats, maybe not so much them. But like I can see you totally getting some of the Guando Rats and going to like push an Ogre side objective and, you know, steal things. They have a lot of like sneaky plays. They have a really good lore of magic. And I think the summon spam is going to be really meta for them because imagine how annoying that's going to be. Just waves and waves of rats just coming at you nonstop. They have Mortis Engine effects too. Like people forget this. They have the Plague Furnace, so you can bring that. And they have a Mortis Engine for like blob fights versus demons. Rat Ogres for mass against heavy calves supported by just chaff. Like I feel like Skaven are not going to be bad, but just my 2 cents. Enticity, is this gonna get past the dreaded C?
I think so. Rat Ogres cost 700 now. So
yeah, they got buffed.
That's pretty great for Skaven. I haven't like cracked the code on them, but it feels like there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
Like you guys are talking like, you know, single entities, Immortus engines, crazy vanguards, really good artillery too. Like I think the biggest problem is like alone they might not do well against cavalry, but even then there's Rat Ogres. You can like pair them with spears or something in your set. So I think I would say the probably B tier, but I wouldn't be surprised if that, you know, went down like 2 ranks or up. But I think like in the month after release, we'll see people start to figure out Skaven. But immediately on launch, I think they'll be terrible. No one will know what to do with them.
Yeah, man. They're very weird to play. Like they have so much, dude. They have so much. You have Rattling Gunners, Jezzails, Mortars, Warp Lightning Cannons, you know, Plagueclaw Catapults, Ogres, you know, Brood Horrors, Hell Pits. Like there's so much. The roster is so thick. And I think once people really dive in and master it, like you said, that'll be quite interesting to see. Now, hey, we can start in the reverse order here, since this is your chosen one, Enticity. We have the Vampire Coast. What are you feeling, man? The Coast.
Nice.
What do you got?
Oh man, people asked for so many Coast games for like when I was doing the streams, and then like I think I got a Coast game in and I lost or something.
Yeah, it's just bleak. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Vampire Coast. They're pretty cool. You know, Depth Guard healing is doubled. Sirenes got changed up to be slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
Shade Wraith Gunner slow. They frostbite in melee now. Yeah. No. I think Coast is they might. Like I know you've been a lot more optimistic than me, Turin. I won't go into the weeds of your opinion.
Yeah.
I would say Coast definitely better than Dwarves. which means they don't get an F. Um,
Whoa, wait, you pin them like low?
Oh, I think Coast is actually pretty far down. Unless like.
Oh, I'm glad we did this in reverse.
Yeah, let him take the heat first.
Yeah. No, I'm ready for this. I've been a supporter of Coast since forever. Like, I think air units, general air cheese is nerfed so hard because everyone will always have the counters to that.
Yeah.
And Coast loved that before. You have. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think about my front line, it's a zombie front line with bombers. That's the most effective thing. Yeah, no, I'm gonna give Coast let's see, how close to dwarves are they?
how much in the pits? Well, you got dwarves at F+, so.
Yeah, I know, because dwarves were one tier above absolutely garbage, right? There was something that they could have been worse. I think Coast has maybe 2 tiers before they hit that, so I think they're like a solid D-. Because everyone has magic damage, and if your only solution is sirens, that's painful. I mean, people are gonna. I'm just ruining everyone's hopes and dreams.
You're the dream crusher, dude. Yeah.
I know. Oh man, that's the only way I see it though. Unless Depth Guard would need to be buffed horrendously.
Yeah.
For Coast to work.
And I don't think that's a healthy option. That's scary too. They were a problem before.
Yeah, but I haven't been able to make even the ROR Lamprey's Revenge. Yeah. It would always do so well in land battles, but in Domination, it just something about it just isn't really helping it out. But I don't know, what builds are you guys playing?
So for Coast, for me, I played maybe 3 or 4 games as Coast, and of course played against you playing Coast. And just objectively speaking, you're a better player than I am. And when you play on Coast, I feel like I have a decent chance of winning. And that's not a common feeling I have when I play against you. Vampire Coast overall, I feel like they're very dependent on the Sirens. Sirens, of course, are incredibly quick with 48 speed or 54 speed. And of course, with the buff to ethereal units, it's very nice, but that kind of is what they're good at. The zombies are super slow, very squishy. Artillery, I don't think is super good in Domination, but the one thing, we haven't really played around with too much is because it's bugged, is Queen Bess. Maybe Queen Bess will be this savior of Vampire Coast, because it's currently bugged in our build right now, guys. In that it has infinite ammo, so we usually just don't use it. So that's a little bit of a thing, but yeah, I've tried a couple brawler builds on maps like Galleon's Cove and the Grove of Slaughter using Depth Guard Siren builds. Actually feels okay with Account Noctilus. I've tried Luther Gunbat builds, which have worked when people are just super unprepared for it, but again, they can summon counters now, so it's not quite as good, but still can be niche. But overall, I agree with most of your assessments. I think Bloated Corpses are actually pretty good. You owned me with Bloated Corpses, but I was playing Dwarves, to be fair. To be fair, I was playing Dwarves.
That sort of changes the argument a little bit, but...
Dude, that was the worst feeling. I remember in one of our games, you had I had an Iron Breaker holding the side objective, and I literally couldn't get anything there in time to stop it. I just had to watch this haggard Bloated Corpse chase down my Iron Breakers, and I was like, this is horrible. But again, I agree Coast is better than Dwarves. For me, I'm going to give them a D+. I think they might have some... If people like yourself who are really good with microing their Sirens, what you do, which is really, really frustrating to play against, is as soon as I imbue something with magic damage, you run the Sirens away until the effect wears off, and then you move back in. People who are really good at that, really good at using the Scurvy Dogs to either snipe things or get capture weight on objectives, they have some niche play, but I do feel Vampire Coast is going to be weaker overall. So, yeah, my 2 cents. Rubber Duck, lead us on.
I'm going to be coming out controversial here, I think.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
think Coast are a bit better than a little lowly D. I guess I remember playing Enticity early on against them, and obviously that's kind of a different case as well because he's so good with the Vampire Coast. But I think in general, the undead factions are pretty strong in Domination due to the fact they've got incredible sticking power in general. And on maps where 2 of the capture points are close together, you can kind of defend 2 in 1. There's a couple of maps that can do that. I think Vampire Coast are very powerful on those maps, really good. Because you can basically just bunker down like you would on a land battle and kind of onion over 2 objectives and just obliterate your opponents with long-range firepower. And then you just move forward and summon chaff into choke points. And there's not really much counterplay to that at the moment. Of your troops getting stuck in. Now, I do agree with pretty much everything else you guys said. but I think just depending on some of the maps, I think they can actually be pretty solid. I'm going to be coming in with a C for them.
Very good.
C.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, and
the lowest. Well,
go ahead.
Lowest, except for dwarves for you, Duck.
I'm pretty optimistic about everyone. I love the dwarves. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to keep saying that because I know people are going to hate me for it. But yeah, I don't know. My experience with them I feel like an F+ is being quite positive with them.
Oh,
it is. Yeah, and, I mean, Coast has some potential. Like, Duck raised some great points. Like, they are undead. Their stuff's more or less unbreakable. They have decent mobility and scurvy dogs. And Sirens are good too. I mean, there are things they can do. So maybe their ranking will improve. Who knows? We'll see. Do you think you're going to be playing them in Enticity at all? Like at first, in some of the early tournaments, going to be experimenting with them, or is it kind of on the back burner for now?
I'll be doing like probably a stream on them at least.
Yeah.
In tournaments, I like it. You know, if the win percentage is high enough, I'll be playing them. But I have like my set of factions right now is a lot's gonna need to change for Coast to start slipping in there. Sadly.
Yeah. I hear you, my friend. I hear you. So next up, we have the Beastie Boys. So the Beastmen for me are interesting. I wouldn't quite put them at A tier. I think they're like close. They really, really want to be, but for me, I have the Beastmen at a B+. I feel like they have the fact that they have like Vanguard and like all their infantry is really nice. So like Goreherds do have Vanguard and they also have normal capture weight, so you can get to the points pretty quickly. They have excellent mobility for both anti-light and anti-armor with the great weapon Centaurs and the basic variant. Good lore choices. I think Brass Bull is very, very good. And they also have some of the best lores of Magic, right? Shadows, I think, is one of the highest rated lores right now. I think Melkoth's Pit of Shades is really, really good. So Beastmen, with their ability to bounce between objectives, it's very, very tough to keep up with them. And Vanguard Infantry, decent gooning potential, and yeah, they have some good monsters too if you want to play that way. But for me, I'd give Beastmen a B+. I wouldn't quite put them at A tier because I feel like they are a little bit flimsy, and sometimes they can get buckled pretty hard and take unfortunate trades if you have poor micro. So I wouldn't put them as like an A or an S tier faction, which are ones that are like more durable and kind of hard to remove. But for Beastmen, I'd give them a B+. I think they have a ton of potential, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what people unlock with them. So next we'll go to Enticity. What do you got for us, man?
Ooh, I will say Beastmen are actually pretty highly rated for me. They, lots of Vanguard. Yeah. And I think something that's sort of been untapped is like the Tuskor chariots. At least among like the content creators. Yeah. We're not like, taking packs of 4 of these guys, but we totally could. It's with the unit caps that CA have, I think it's like 4 chariots.
Yeah, it's a little bit more forgiving. Yeah, I think it's like 3 normally, right, for land battles.
4 chariots, and then I think 4 is, I think like they limited it down to like really low one time. But anyways. They're still insanely good. They kill cavalry, but they also don't lose models, so their capture weight stays just as high. So instead of cavalry, they'll be capping while you fight. Centaurs are really great, and it's sort of it's like a slightly lesser Slaanesh. And Slaanesh, I think, spoilers will be pretty good. Yeah. So Beastmen has to at least be quite close. You got the strong single entities. I'm gonna give them an A-. I think we will actually see them in tournaments as a semi-common faction.
Yeah, man, and I think B+, A-. I definitely feel like they're in that territory. Like some of the play that you displayed with them was so nice. Like the Centaurs, the mobility, the vanguarding. And honestly, they're not bad at just trading too. Like even if you don't want to play the objective mobility game, like Beastmen can trade well, man. They have good choices. So what do you have, Matt Rubberduck? Do you have any controversial opinions here? Are you kind of in the ballpark?
I'm afraid I don't have that much controversy. I pretty much think you guys nailed it on the head. Yeah. The only thing I would add, I basically feel like them and greenskins. Like I said with greenskins, who are relatively dominant towards the end of Warhammer 2. I feel like Beastmen have been able to transition pretty much all their strengths across into Warhammer 3, but maybe actually slightly better due to the fact their cavalry, in my opinion, is a lot more just better than the greenskin cav in general. It packs much more of a punch, and I think the Centaurs are quite nice. Like you guys said, Their main weakness is the holding power of the infantry, but I think the fact they've got Bestigors, I think they're a little overlooked. That actually moving one unit in kind of the mid to late game just to sit on an objective can really help out the kind of wider chaff force you tend to see. I'm actually going to give them a straight A, so a tiny bit above what Anticities is, but I think them and the Greenskins have both transitioned across. I think Beastmen very slightly better than Greenskins. I feel like Greenskins maybe a bit better infantry in general, but the added speed in the cav kind of pips it for me for the Beastmen. So yeah, I'm going to go for a solid A.
Right on, man. Right on. Well, good points. I think we're all kind of in a similar opinion as it pertains to the Beastmen. I'm really looking forward to seeing them in action. Like, who do you guys rate for their lords? Like, I've had success with both Morker and Torox. Have you guys used Malagor at all, or is lore magic not like super great right now?
I think I used them in a free for all. I just sort of spammed.
Well, what about in Domination though? Who's been your Beastman go-to in Domination battles?
Oh, like Minotaurs they're just too good, man. The fast single entity fighter to take points and fight on it is that's like my favorite sort of thing to do. How about you, ARubberDuck?
Yeah, literally the same. I mean, Torox or just the Doom Ball, but that's more of a thematic reason because I really like his model. But I also think that he does quite nice with like the days and so on. But I've also found quite a lot of success with the Shadowgave just because he's basically, or he feels at least in the games I played, pretty unkillable, and I would just stick him on an objective and be a pain in the butt. But yeah, I'd kind of with you, just a fast lord who can hit really hard and cap is always going to be a big plus in Dom.
Yeah. Torox or Morger is good. Like the Chaos Spawn summons can be pretty clutch. Like if you're like in that really early game situation where you're fighting for an important point, you can like roadblock somebody with a spawn summon. That's like really cost effective.
Oh wait, yo guys,
what's up?
Is this new? Did Kazrak always have armor that gave him in melee plus 30 armor, plus 25% spell resist, plus 20% damage resist?
I don't think it was that good. It was something similar, but yeah, I mean, maybe Kazrak's making a comeback. I didn't know that.
That's huge.
It's funny.
It's constant if he's in melee. He has 130 armor in melee.
Somebody in chat right as you said that, because there's a stream delay, so they couldn't have heard you. They were like, Kazrak's going to be the best Beastman Lord. And I'm like, dude, he nailed it, man. Who knows?
He's on it.
My gosh. Jeez, that's crazy. All right, anyways, yeah, Beastmans.
Yeah.
Maybe, oh man, Kazrak meta, that would be insane.
Yeah, he hasn't been meta since like Beastmen launched, and even then Morker was just so much better. So it's just like he's never had his time in the sun, dude. You know? That's new, I think. I think that's new. People in chat are saying that's new. It was only the damage resist before Enticity, so he didn't have the armor and the spell resist. Yeah. That's good. Damn. Well, all right. So who wants to lead us in the most obvious S+ tier? You want to go first, Enticity?
Okay.
Or Duck, you do this one, man. Go for it.
Well, I'm just thankful that you said that, because I was like, did I miss something? And all of a sudden people have figured out vampire counts. And actually they're like super weak now and stuff. But from my experience of the games I've played, which is quite few because no one wants to play against vampire counts. They're just that good. They're really horrible. Now, I have seen them defeated, though.
Yeah.
By Enticity, funnily enough. And I copied and definitely didn't steal his strategy. I borrowed his strategy. And it worked equally amazing. So I think there is one faction that's going to be a little further down the list who I think counters them quite hardly. But yeah, Vampire counts, the ability just to heal as much as they do and stick on objectives. They're like a more tanky Nurgle. It's disgusting. And they've got the added speed because they've also got the Knights, the Flying Lords as well, who can be rather mobile. I think, a couple of games against Samurai Warrior. So Samurai Warrior is a Vampire count main. He absolutely slammed my corn. So I was like, well, hey, that doesn't prove anything because, I don't play Vampire counts much, or he plays Vampire counts a lot, sorry. So I'm expecting him to be really good. So then he gave me Vampire counts. And I'm quite notorious for not being the biggest fan of counts in Warhammer 2. I felt they were quite boring to play. And it was a cakewalk. It was like the easiest thing for me to be victorious with it. And just that alone kind of showed me that they're probably going to be S+. But since then, I think people have started to figure out one or two strategies. And the fact now that zombies don't have as good capture weight, I'm actually going to put them at S and not S+. Yeah, I'm going to stick them in at S. I think they're arguably the best faction. I have an argument later on for a different faction, though, which may be a bit more controversial. But yeah, I'm going to go for S on the counts.
Right on, man. And yeah, vampire counts are... And I probably played about 5 or 6 games with them, so not too many. Obviously, in the current early access rendition, we only have so many people to play with, and obviously people's schedules are all over the place. Plus, people also not wanting to play vampire counts as much, just because it feels very lopsided. But yes, they can lose, but I feel that vampire counts are in the hands of those really villainous Warhammer 2 players who are really good at vampire counts. Like, they are just going to find the most evil shit that you can possibly do. And I'm just going to give vampire counts an S+. I think the triple summons, so basically you can bring double necromancer, double rod, forbidden rod. You get like something like, they come with a base summon, so you get 16 zombie summons plus another 7, so you get 23, infinite winds of magic, just insanely durable infantry, buffed healing, graveguard zombie skeletons, crypt horrors blocking objectives just with stacked healing. But they can do everything Nurgle does, but better. And on top of that, they have access to really good cavs. So Blood Knights, Black Knights, they just have it all, man. They have like good flying units like Vargheists, Bats, whatever you want to do. They just have so much they bring to the table. And I feel like that nobody is going to be able to beat vampire counts on maps that are like choke point based. So if we're talking Galleon's Cove, Crossing of the Sea of Claws, where you can't get good like line of sight on them, and it's just kind of forced into a blob fight, I feel vampire counts are going to be like an auto take. They just feel super strong, and I do think that if anybody's going to get maybe nerfs at some point, it might be them. But I just don't see anybody rivaling vampire counts consistently. Yes, there might be a couple factions here that can beat them and have okay matchups against them. But if we're talking the breadth of this entire list of 24 playable factions we're going to have, I think vampire counts will be favored in like 80 to 90% of those matchups. And the ones that they can lose with equally skilled players will be more of a even matchup, more so than them being like unfavored. So yeah, because infinite wins. Yeah, so the forbidden rods give you reserves on top of power recharge. So they just keep giving you reserves back, and you can get like almost 30 zombie summons. Plus, you can re-summon your necromancers and refresh the charges of both the zombie summons and the forbidden rods for only like 500 gold. It's insane. So there's my rant. Enticity, what do you got for us, man?
All right. So my tier for S is basically a faction where you'll basically see people play mirror matches instead of actually trying to counter it.
Yeah.
And here's the hot take. Vampire counts, I don't think people will actually play the mirror in tournaments. I think there is a solution. So I've won with Khorne, but I think better counts play would beat it.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Slaanesh has what it takes to dumpster counts.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you you can actually dodge Gazes of Nagash fairly consistently with your with Nakari or Exalted Keepers of Secrets. And Pit of Shades one-shots Graveguard, so they won't get any healing. Plus you have Marauders. Like the Marauder sword variants are crazy good anti-infantry. And also I feel like it's against Lizardmen, it's a fairly even matchup. So while they're definitely very strong, I would say actually A+.
Oh no, you didn't give them an S?
I've been investigating a lot. Okay. Hear me out. The healing should definitely still be nerfed. But I think as it stands right now, I think the shenanigans that can be worked on, and I spent days thinking about how to beat counts, and ran a whole bunch of tests. But I think if you have someone that doesn't know how to counter them, it'll be disgusting. They'll just win all the time.
Yeah.
But I think there are these sort of cracks where you sneak in a Slaanesh counterpick, a Lizardman, maybe a Khorne for slightly unfavored. I think Chaos, because they're gonna get a million different things.
Oh yeah.
I think they actually have quite a few, and Tzeentch too. It's there's a good amount of matchups that I would be yeah, no, these are bad. They're just gonna get countered. But this, if CA's watching this doesn't mean we shouldn't nerf them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think they do bleed, and I would say there are factions on this tier list that do not bleed, but we'll get to them later.
If it bleeds, we can kill it. Somebody in chat had a really funny comment. They're like, I feel like I'm watching American Idol. Enticity to Simon. Just that's so good. Yeah, I certainly feel an interesting take, but you've had a little bit of time to test them, and I'm really curious when we get to the factions that you think can give the vampire counts the business, dude. I'd love to hear the explanations, and I think many of the tournament players in chat will be taking notes as well because, man, oh man, they feel strong. They feel very, very good. So next up, we have the Warriors of Chaos. So we got new Archeon, we got all the new characters getting a little bit sauced up. Plus, Chaos can bring some stuff from the other rosters, which is very nice. Rubber Duck, where do you have Warriors of Chaos sitting?
Yeah, I might be a little bit biased for this one, but that's mainly because I've been having just so much fun with Warriors of Chaos in general. And like I've kind of made points earlier with Greenskins, and I believe it was Beastmen, who were really strong at the end of Warhammer 2, and their playstyle just suits Domination so much. This may be controversial, I'm not sure. I feel like Warriors of Chaos were probably the best faction in the game in Warhammer 2. At the very end of Warhammer 2, with that current meta, I feel like Warriors of Chaos were probably the best faction, and the faction I saw most people bring in tournaments. And I think their style, that like aggressive, get in the face of your opponent, really suits Domination. They've got units which can hold the line, obviously Chaos Warriors, and now with the added bonus to their roster, the amount of flexibility they have has gone up so much. Archeon as well been improved, I think, as a fantastic lord. I'm always a sucker for Kolek Suneater, and I think he can be competitive. And you've also got Sigvald, who just doesn't die at all. So I think Warriors of Chaos being even more flexible than they were before. The playstyle perfectly suits Domination. You can just keep pushing, leave one or two units left back on the Domination objectives and go nice and aggressive. The fact they don't rely on range, so they can't be kind of isolated and picked apart like other factions who struggle to transition from land battles into Domination. I think they're super strong, man. I think they're really good. I'm going to give them an A+. But again, I may be super biased. They've been probably my second or third favorite faction to play at the moment, and I've had a lot of success with them. I'm sure there are counters that I just haven't run into, but if I'm going off what I've played so far, A+.
Copy that, brother. Copy that. For myself, I'm going to be giving Warriors of Chaos an S. I wouldn't say they're as good as vampire counts, but like in a broad spectrum of matchups. But I think the ability for the Warriors of Chaos to bring some units from different rosters. One of the biggest things has been being able to bring some of the Slaanesh Cavs. So some of the the Hellscourge Cav and things like that has been so useful in Domination. On top of that, having access to great open infantry, halberds, shielded infantry, great lore choices. I would say Warriors of Chaos are going to be S tier. And that's also a little bit of future proofing because I think once they get their official update, I think they're going to be a big contender for sure. So for me, Warriors of Chaos are going to be an S. How about you, Enticity?
S+, yo.
Let's go. Vampire Warriors of Chaos, man.
I think with the update.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's this proper Nurgle sorcerer is coming, right?
Yeah, I think they had that in one of their articles or something. Dude, there's going to be so much stuff. It's going to be wild.
Yeah, it's chaos with healing.
Oh no!
It's chaos with healing and Be'lakor.
Oh, not Be'lakor, dude. He's so vile. Oh,
you can heal up Be'lakor. Oh my gosh! Yeah, no. This is why every other faction is so low. Because I think chaos. You have the cheap cap of the Marauders.
Yeah.
But you can mark them.
Yeah.
You can mark them with ITP, or you can give all your guys magic resist. So all the usual crazy spells to nuke armor is gone. You have Pit of Shades, just as a general fact, which is one of my favorite spells. And the Hellstriders. Oh my gosh. No, Chaos is the spawn. Marked spawn. You can mix and match your Slaanesh. So think about this. Sporific Musk is -5 melee attack, -5 melee defense. Plus you have Armor Sundering of Tzeentch spawn in a fight. So it's you're doubling down on the best debuffs from both factions. Oh my gosh. Oh man. Yeah, I'm assuming we get any the new stuff is not priced terribly.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Chaos is going to dominate.
Yeah, they're going to be terrifying, dude. Terrifying.
Yeah. This is I think I'm pretty sure we'll see them every single tournament round for the higher tiers. But I don't know. Maybe someone will prove me wrong, but I have no idea how. I think They even have artillery. It's crazy. Yeah, no, I think I'm like a confident S plus here.
No, it's good. Somebody in chat did mention that the Nurgle Lord that CA was talking about is only a Lord, so you won't be able to heal Be'lakor.
Only a Lord? Dang it.
Yeah.
All right, never mind.
You still could have him and then like some sort of a chaos monster like a Shaggoth or something. I mean, there's certainly some, and like who doesn't like healing up like Chosen and units like that. But yeah, man, Warriors of Chaos, like this is, keep in mind our opinions that we're talking about now are a little bit speculative based on what's been shown. But yeah, like Chaos, like Khorne is really good right now. Nurgle is very good. Like Chaos can do all of that, and then they can bring like some marked units, like Enticity said. Their lords kind of got revamped. Like Sigvald's better, Archeon's better. Like there's a lot of goodness for them. So next up, we have one which I feel is actually pretty darn good, and I'm going to be going with Tomb Kings and giving them a solid A. I think that with the nerfs to things like, oh man, do I even want to go A plus here? Oh man, they're not quite S tier. I would probably say A tier for Tomb Kings. So Tomb Kings, for myself, are going to be one of the ones I mix in as one of my main factions. I think Tomb Guard spam is incredibly cost effective. They have really cheap, cost effective horses in Nehekar Horsemen and Skeleton Horsemen. Arkan is really, really good. Even Cetra, I think, can be situationally not bad. I think the time of the Tomb Kings is now. Like, if they were ever in a place to be like really strong, now that Burning Head's been nerfed, like all these wind spells have been nerfed a little bit, I think Tomb Kings are going to be really, really cost effective. Every game I played with them, like I felt like it's great, man. So Tomb Kings for me, it's like I'm torn between an A and an A plus. But for now, I'm probably going to go for an A on Tomb Kings. RubberDuck, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here as well. Like I said earlier with the Vampire Coast, I think all the undead factions are relatively strong. But Tomb Kings really have it for me over the coast.
Yeah, they're all better.
I think their range options suit Domination quite well as well, like the Casket of Souls. And I played a game, I believe it was up against Milk and Cookies, and they can outgrind Nurgle pretty effectively. Like, Ushopti were a big problem, which is something that normally they weren't particularly great because they're kind of pretty bad melee attack. But the fact they've got that staying power, and you can, again, do summons into choke points, fantastic units such as Bowshopti as well to range shots in from afar. I pretty much agree with everything you said, and I think Cetra is also going to be phenomenal against the majority of the demon factions.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love Cetra at the end of the day? So
cool.
It's, for me, a solid A. I'm tempted to go A+, but I think I'm going to go A. I'd also probably mention with my previous rating of Warriors of Chaos, if we're talking new stuff added in, I may bump them to an S, but in the A+ is where I think they currently are. Yeah, I'm gonna go for a solid A with the Tomb Kings.
Yeah, man, they just feel so smooth to play. And Enticity, I'm sure you've had great success with just like Tomb Guard as like a core infantry, yeah.
Yeah. Same thoughts here. They also got buffed on a lot of fronts. So Skeleton Warriors and Spears are cheaper. Nehekar Warriors have anti-infantry. Carrion are cheaper. Just real good all around. The biggest thing though is that their passive, their army passive, heals twice as much now. So it heals like 36% of your HP. So it's like your first wave of Tomb Guard are like 15% more effective ish than they were before, which is pretty big. It's pretty big. I think Tomb Kings players are gonna you might not feel it, but it's like your Tomb Guard costs like 650 now.
They're so good.
Yeah. So, yeah. It's just a solid A. I think they'll be played to counter everything below them.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So you can see we all agree on the Tomb Kings. Like, I think for anybody who's like new to domination mode and you want to get in and play a faction, I actually think Tomb Kings are going to be a great choice. Like the fact that you don't have to worry about stuff routing, you could basically just mass Tomb Guard, march them up, support with some cool characters, Bowshopti, Nehekar Horseman, whatever, your fancy really. Like Tomb Scorpions have Vanguard too. Like I've had that be pertinent in a couple games. Being able to like Vanguard like a big terror causing monster can be really nice on like a side point. So yeah, man, Tomb Kings. Now, Enticity, I know you played a lot of Khorne. Now, in terms of our analysis of the upcoming factions, we're going to do Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch. We can do some like light speculation based on what we've seen and whatnot. But who do you have for Khorne, man? Where do you think they're going to be sitting once we get into the Immortal Empires?
So Khorne's probably going to be like the least affected faction, right? Like I guess if he gets chaff,
yeah,
we're doing like full speculation.
Yeah, we can just like tinfoil hat,
Yeah. I think like because okay, a lot of people complain about Khorne having expensive units.
Yeah.
Spoilers, guys. His infantry got more expensive.
Yeah.
CA made them more expensive on our build. All his warriors are like plus 100, but they did get spell resist. Anyways, the chaff argument, I never really liked it as much. I think chaff are actually much weaker than just taking mid-tier infantry. So I think Khorne's basically staying the same, but he's still pretty strong. I'd probably put him on like the same tier as like Tomb Kings and stuff. I don't know. Do you guys think Khorne's gonna change a lot with the?
I personally don't think so too much. I mean, obviously it depends on what else we maybe get, but so you're gonna go with an A for Khorne? That's what you're feeling?
Yeah, because like I think he's still very strong. It's just a bunch of mid-tier infantry, flesh hounds.
So
great.
I kind of feel like Khorne right now is like an A-tier faction if we look at them, like really good, like very, very strong. I might rate Khorne myself at like an A+. And again, a lot of that is like future proofing, but I just feel like they have like some of the best tools for domination, right? Like they have really cost-effective infantry. They have some decent lore choices, but also they have the Fleshhounds and the Furies. The Furies with Frenzy and Fleshhounds, of course, trade incredibly well. So, for myself, I'm probably going to go with an A+ for Khorne. Again, a lot of the factions that we're doing right now are a little bit speculative, but I just feel they're so user-friendly, and I'm curious how their win rate has been. I really wish we had that data from tournaments, but we will in the future. But for now, I'm probably going to go for an A+ with Khorne. Just like the infantry, although the nerfs did hurt a little bit. The 100 gold to all their like baseline stuff is rough. So I guess it's so hard to speculate without knowing like what's coming. But yeah, I'm going to go for an A+ with Khorne. What do you got, Rubber Duck?
Yeah, like, I don't have too much to say about Khorne. I feel like everyone already knows them kind of inside out. They're a very basic faction in their playstyle.
Yeah.
And similar to someone like, I don't know, Dwarves, I feel like they're always going to have some good matchups and some bad matchups, just based on the fact that they're so one-dimensional. But I just feel like Khorne's playstyle really suits domination. Like, it's perfect for Khorne in reality. And you guys are kind of touching on it, like, mid-tier infantry, that's really solid. Fantastic skirmish in the form of, counter-skirmish, I suppose, in the form of Fleshhounds and Warhounds and Furies and everything. Good Lord options. It's just going to be a solid A for me, I don't think. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go A- just because of the points increase. If they get cheaper chaff as well, I know, Enticity, you said you think mid-tier infantry is better. I do feel like with one or two cheap units added in the mix would be quite nice, so I'm going to go A- just because they're a little bit predictable, and I think some of the new factions coming in, the majority they'll be fine against, but one or two they may struggle with just because of their playstyle, and they're not very flexible in that regard. I'm also going to disappear for about 5 minutes, by the way. I will be back, so if you guys want to get started on Nurgle and Smash and so on, I'll be literally at 5 minutes. I've literally like 20 minutes before this started, I was getting a tattoo. So I need to go wash it and apply some stuff to it. So I'll be back in a little bit.
No worries, man. Take your time.
I'll be back in like 5 minutes.
So, Enticity, it is you and I. How do you feel about Nurgle, man?
So Nurgle, one of the things that I think oft not considered, he's getting Chaos Knight Lances. You compare them to Grail Knights. The Chaos Knights have higher stats.
They do poison too, don't they?
Oh yeah, like presumably.
I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine they're going to do poison. Like everything on the Nurgle roster has it. Do their Forsaken have poison?
Can
you check that?
Sure. Well, like on our build, they would have marks now, right? And I think they give poison. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So if the Forsaken of Nurgle have poison, then I would imagine they would too.
So Nurgle is a cavalry faction with healing.
Yeah.
That's pretty scary. Like a slow faction no more. Nurgle is actually faster than Cathay now.
Yeah.
Well, actually no, depends on how you count Cathay cavalry, but Nurgle's actually like speedy. Like what makes them different from Chaos, would you say, Turin?
Oh man, in terms of like, I mean, having Nurglings, the good Nurgling chaff capture weight with Vanguard, because Nurglings aren't expendable, is really, really nice. I mean, Chaos will have their Marauders, but having an unbreakable chaff unit to steal objectives and obviously blanket poison across the entire roster is very, very good too. One of the best lores of Magic in the game, granted Chaos probably, like people said, will be getting that, but You have it on a Rotfly character, which I think is better simply because he has an AoE heal on top of that, which is very, very good. So if I had to just like rate Nurgle, I'd probably like them getting mobility, potentially just getting a bunch of armor. Like that's always been the weakness of Nurgle, right? Is like their lack of armor, so they're kind of predictable and relatively easy to counter with a blanket build. But Nurgle getting armor and just updated, like they have many of the fundamentals of like an OP faction, right? For Dom, they have like healing and really, really grindy, good quality infantry. I would give Nurgle an S tier. I don't feel they're as good as Vampire counts, but I mean, this again is very speculative. But for me, they would be S tier. Where do you have them at?
So it depends on the lords. Yeah. I'm tempted to give them let's see here. Compared to Chaos, they're missing the Hellstriders. I remember there's something that Nurgle has over Chaos, right? I guess just
you have the army abilities too. You have the army abilities. So you have the fecundity, you have the slow, you have the slow is really actually good in Domination. When you're in like a clutch game, somebody's like rushing for an objective and you get Curse of the Slug, dude, that can win you games. You know, it's really good.
I remember Nurgle has Furies.
Yes.
The golden unit of Warhammer 3.
Oh, they're so awful.
Yeah. Oh man. I remember like we first got our hands on the build.
Yeah.
And we just noticed Furies were just like, oh, like it's not that it's just like Furies are just really good compared to the Warhammer 2 factions.
Yeah, man. Oh my god, they're so tough to deal with. Yeah. But some of the older factions have better tools for dealing with them, like. And with the buffs to some of the Cathay stuff, I feel like they're slightly better off. But yeah, Furies have been the scourge for a long time. But yeah, Nurgle does have Furies with poison, so yeah, very good.
I would give them same tier as Chaos then, S+.
S+.
I think everybody's gonna run them. Yep. Nurgle is no longer like the slow, unarmored faction. They're just as fast. They're like basically just as fast as Chaos now.
Yeah.
Except even more healing and a Mortis engine.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Like I'm very tempted to give them an S+ as well, but I'm just going to take a more conservative S for now. And yeah, they're just going to be good. Like Khorne, Nurgle, like all those type of factions are just very, very well suited to play this game mode. Much easier to use than factions where you have to position missiles and protect missiles. Like that's one of the big things too for newer players. Like when Immortal Empires comes out, if you just play Nurgle and Khorne and like these melee-based factions, your win rates will probably be way higher than you would if you try and play like more difficult ranged factions like Empire and some of these elves. Slaanesh, I'm just gonna like bullet this one out. Again, a lot of it's speculative, but Slaanesh for me is going to be S+. I think their mobility, they're hard hitting, and if they're going to be getting some armor, then that's just going to like imagine an armored Slaanesh wall pushing up with Marauder support and then like just crazy cost-effective mobility that can just has such a high skill cap. Like Slaanesh's skill cap is just nuts. Like when you get really good players on them, it gets terrifying. So for me, Slaanesh is going to be S+, man, and I would imagine you probably feel the same.
Ooh, man. So like I haven't seen Slaanesh do a lot of losing recently.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
Oh man, and they're getting more. So like yeah, like as meta develops, the usual like hard counter spells to try and like cheese them down with wind spells and such, that won't work. The thing is, do you feel like Slaanesh without healing would be able to compete against like something like Chaos or Nurgle?
So Slaanesh without healing is what you're saying. So
because like they'll have healing in more or less the same units.
Yeah, I feel Slaanesh will be able to compete with Chaos for sure. But I mean, it's because they get the Demon Cab, which are very good. Like the Seekers are just so amazing, and Slaanesh Furies are going to be incredibly good against Chaos, right? Like if Chaos tries to bring any quality like armored infantry, then you can just hammer them with like some crappy Marauder with a bonus for his infantry, and then like rear charge them with armor piercing Furies, and you're going to just massively value trade against them, right? So I think that matchup actually could be even. So that's why I'm I don't know. Maybe I should have rated Warriors of Chaos a little bit higher, but like something about Slaanesh's playstyle and just the mobility, I just feel like they're so good. And you have like access to Lore of Shadows, which is really good. Probably going to be great against Chaos. And even still, Lore of Slaanesh is good too. Like the whip, the debuffs, the army-wide melee attack buff will give you a slight edge on some of the fighting against the unmarked Warriors of Chaos. Like I feel like Slaanesh will probably be slightly stronger, but that's just probably a little bit of trauma from being beaten down by them so many times. So,
no, I think you got me convinced. If devoted Marauders of Slaanesh stay as they are, I think right now they beat like 500 gold infantry.
Oh, they crush, dude. They crush. And they're ITP too, so monsters can't even buckle them off. They're so good.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, physical resist 10%. They got, oh my jeez. Extremely fast. Yeah.
You know what's really funny is looking at the top of today's like breakdown. We like have all the old world factions at just like C, like I'm looking at yours, it's like C-, F, C+, and then like now that we're down to the new stuff, it's like A, S, A. I probably should have like organized it differently to be less of a stark contrast, you know.
Randomized it. Oh man. It's fine. This is we gotta tell them the truth.
It's the truth, man. We're getting it out there. Now, Slaanesh, do you feel S tier for them? Is that what you're kind of banking on?
I would say S plus.
Yeah. They're so good, man. Slaanesh
is
they
so won't
hot.
have healing, but sometimes you don't need it.
And at the highest levels, I think is where they're going to shine. Like newer players might struggle with Slaanesh a little bit because their cav is flimsy, and if you let one of your Slaanesh cav get charged by like a shot cav or focused by missiles, like you're going to lose a ton of value quickly. But like players like yourself and folks who have a really good RTS instincts, I think Slaanesh is going to be a terror for sure. And yes, RubberDuck is taking a quick break right now. He had some stuff he had to take care of. He'll be back in a couple minutes, and we'll get him to rapid fire some opinions once he returns. So now we're on to Tzeentch. What are your thoughts on Tzeentch, man?
Tzeentch doesn't have that same kick as the other guys, does he?
Agreed.
No healing, no speed.
Yeah.
His blues have been nerfed like every single patch. Is that right?
Yeah, they have. Okay. I mean, they were really, really powerful at first. And yeah, Tzeentch has taken some nerfs. Yeah.
Yeah. I am a follower of the Dark Gods. It's true. Sorry, I'm reading your chat. Oh man. But yeah, Tzeentch. Oh man, yeah. I think Tzeentch is gonna be like an A. Like an A. Better than Beastmen, probably. Maybe. Do you think Tzeentch will be better than Beastmen?
You see, for myself, I have currently, and I'm just going to put it out there now, I have Tzeentch at a B+. Again, a lot of it's speculation. We don't really know what's coming, how things are going to be changing. But I personally think Khorne is going to be ubiquitously like better across the board than Tzeentch. I think that I actually feel Tomb Kings are stronger than Tzeentch too. Like the ability to spam out all those infantry. So for me, that's the metric. But I do feel that Tzeentch is going to be very good. And again, this could change depending on what is revealed and what we see. But I feel like they're really strong, but they do have some weaknesses for sure. But yeah, I don't know. It's with these factions, guys, it's really tough for us to get into it because we don't really know everything. So we're just kind of like tinfoil hatting this. But I would say B+ for Tzeentch.
I've returned, by the way, just as a heads up.
Welcome back.
I see regrowth on Kairos.
It's good.
He can heal up his chosen.
Like
I'll give Tzeentch an A.
A solid A. Right on, brother. Right on.
Yeah.
And like I feel like Tzeentch might struggle to deal with some of these like really wide builds. Like I'm trying to think, like if you just have a build that has like a ton of shielded like Tomb Guard type stuff or like Grave Guard, like I feel like Tzeentch is really going to struggle to clear that out. And but again, yeah, like we'll see what they get. They have Protoss shields, which is very strong. So, and we all know how OP Protoss is in StarCraft. So they do have that. Now, Duck, you have returned. We talked about Nurgle, Slaanesh, and Tzeentch. So if you want to, you could just rapid fire off some rankings for those. You can also look on the spreadsheet and see what we gave them, and just whatever you think there.
Yeah, sure. I'll probably disagree a tiny bit on Nurgle. I just think some of the new factions coming in, I've not done like extensive tests on it, but I feel like a few of the new factions may be able to shoot Nurgle off the board. At least, I mean, that's kind of wishful thinking maybe because Nurgle is so tanky, but I'm going to give them an S- instead of an S.
Ooh, the hot take.
I don't know. I feel like they're good. I feel like they're better in land battles though. They are domination. By quite a bit, at least in base Warhammer 3. Going into Immortal Empires, I actually think they've gotten significantly worse in land battles just because there's so many more styles of play and like skirmish play and stuff I think they can struggle with. I know S- for Nurgle. Slaanesh? Interesting you guys have gone S+. I'm assuming it's just for the swift backline harass and the stopping people getting onto objectives. I've not played a huge amount of Slaanesh. Like, even in base game, they're never my favorite to play. So, it feels wrong for me to put them as S+, just because I haven't seen this unholy power you guys clearly have witnessed. But that's not because it doesn't exist, it's just I haven't seen it.
Sure.
So, I would have put Slaanesh in an A bracket rather than the S bracket. And that's simply just due to speed. I think the fact, I don't know, this is kind of a tricky one. I haven't played them enough to give them S+. So I'm going to put them in an A. And then for Tzeentch, Tzeentch can be a tricky one. I feel like they've not changed too much with the addedness for Mortal Empires. Of course, there's lots of speculation. I don't know what they're going to have by the time everyone gets the hold of the game.
Yeah.
You
could even just do like fundamentally how they perform now with like maybe a slight augment, and like what we kind of talked about was like all these factions getting armor being like huge for them, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And actually, because of that, yeah, I'm going to go for a B+ as well. Then I'll agree with you on that one. Yeah, fantastic firepower, got decent amount of skirmishers, and also who doesn't love Doom Knights? I mean, they get a plus just for that.
Dude, they have some of the coolest voice lines. Just the rumbly bass in their voice, like, oh, they're so cool, man.
Guys, I haven't taken Doom Knights in months.
Yeah, they're not. They're expensive. I mean, I remember when the game first came out, Enticity. You were a big Doom Knight enjoyer. Like when we were like grinding the Cathay Tzeentch matchup, you were just using these Tzeentch armor builds with Doom Knights. But yeah, like the fact that I feel like Chaos Knights are just exponentially better. The Tzeentch Chaos Knights with the ability to capture and just the amount of damage output they have with the higher models. But yeah, Doom Knights are still one of the coolest units for sure.
You're burning chariot of Tzeentch though. One day it will rule.
Well, if they fix it.
I keep trying. I tried it versus Norska, thinking I could snipe a lord, and it couldn't even do that.
It's bugged. No. It's bugged now. Because if you did they fix it? Because it used to be that if you resummon it, it can't shoot.
I think they fixed it.
They fixed it, you think?
I haven't tested it. I've been too fearful to take it.
Yeah, we'll see. All right, now it's time for a fun one. This is, we had the Dwarf Grudge, where like we all got put in the Great Book, and I feel like Grand Cathay would have some sort of a book. I feel like there's a loyal Cathay fan base that just knows they're an underdog. So now we've gotten past the OP demon factions who have like an average of like an S.
Yeah, they're all so good.
So Duck, you want to lead us in with Grand Cathay, man? You want to give the people some hope or crush their spirits?
Well, I'm coming with a super hot take.
Okay.
Super hot take. Enticity is going to want to murder me, I'm sure. You may well as well. I know you guys really do like Grand Cathay. I've played against you both as well when you've used Grand Cathay like way back in the day and stuff. I think Grand Cathay are currently, and so normal Warhammer before Mortal Empires, are the worst faction in Domination. And I think Dwarfs comfortably counter Grand Cathay. And for that, I'm putting Grand Cathay as F. I think they're the worst faction in the game in Domination.
As an F?
An F.
Okay.
I think they're the worst faction. Yeah, I think they're the worst faction in Domination. Simply due to the fact that dwarfs can counter them like really effectively, and people may be saying, "Hey, I've got cavalry and so on." The cavalry does nothing to the dwarfs. They don't care if you've got Jade Lancers and Peasant Horsemen. They're not going to really touch. Like dwarf warriors can just take that charge easily. I'm sure there's a load of good Cathay players out there, and there's a load of different play styles. I'm a big fan of some of Inticity's streams where he'll play Grand Cathay, but I'm just doing this as like your base player is hopping on the game. Cathay for me is the worst faction. So yeah, I'm sorry. I think their playstyle doesn't suit Domination at all. I think they're basically just worse dwarfs with Cav, but the Cav's not good. So yeah, I'm sorry.
No,
I know that's probably controversial, but that's where I put them.
Dude, I definitely respect it as well. Yeah, like if we look at Cathay right now versus the existing demon factions that they basically have to suffer against every day, like I think they probably are in F tier as well. But I think in the Immortal Empires, I believe that Cathay is much stronger than the Dwarves, like exponentially stronger. Because for me, they have Peasant Horsemen and Jade Lancers, both of whom have good capture weight and give them more diverse options across the battlefield. They have excellent magic. Cathay's magic is insanely good, with the Amulet giving Winds of Magic recharge, the Talons of the Night, they have summons, the Lore of Yin is really, really good. So I feel Cathay is quite a bit better than the Dwarves. And honestly, like, if I don't have to play against, like, the Chaos factions, I feel like Cathay is decent against, like, Empire, Bretonnia, Dwarves. Like, in the couple games, I played Cathay versus Dwarves 2 or 3 times. And the Crane Gunners just absolutely obliterate the Dwarves. Like, I don't know how they would even deal with that. Like, it feels like they just get wrecked. And Dwarf Infantry don't really trade that much better than Cathay Infantry. They are slightly better pound for pound, but Cathay's mobility usually, in my experience, is has won the games. But yeah, it's tricky. Like Cathay in the pre-Immortal Empires would be an F for me, but Cathay now, I would probably put them like, I think they're better than Bretonnia. Like I would probably put Cathay as a B. Like a B or a B minus would be where I kind of have them. I think maybe a B minus is going to be where I go. Like I feel Cathay is favored versus the Empire. I feel like they're favored versus Bretonnia. They're favored versus Dwarves. They trade decently into all the elf factions in my experience, and really I feel like they could be like a B or a B minus, like somewhere in that ballpark. So, Enticity, how do you feel about them, man?
Oh boy, I think we're sort of just everywhere. Like you're really optimistic. Rubber Duck hates Cathay apparently. Oh man,
yeah.
I think because I think there are better dwarves actually.
Yeah.
In that they got the plus cavalry. They got the crossbows, which is equal to dwarves. Oh man, I do not know where to place them because I look across the board, and I don't know how they compare to Bretonnia. Like, for me, it's either a C or a D, because I think their cavalry they can't double down on their cavalry to help capture. Like after you summon your peasants and then your Jade Lancers, you're sort of empty. But like, you know, that sort of capture meta is less important now. It's a lot more about trading. And then they just need like only a few units of cavalry to help trade. Oh man, you know what? I'm gonna plop Cathay down as a let's see, what, Empire C minus compared to Empire. They don't got skirmishers. I'm gonna put them at a D plus.
Hey man, at least they didn't get an F.
yeah, no, they passed. Cathay passes. I think this is the best they've ever been in the meta.
Yeah. No, for sure, man. And I think it'd be interesting to do like a whole podcast, like if you guys want to do them in the future, we could like discuss certain factions and like their like every matchup for them. I think that could be a fun format.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I'll be very much down for that.
But yeah, I agree with your sentiments that they do feel like better dwarves, right? They can do much of what dwarves do, but they have magic and mobility.
I don't know. I mean, I've only had so I've played Dwarves versus Cathay, I think 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
So again, like I may have not seen something you guys saw, but mine as a blast and charges just kill all the infantry and like trade effectively. The Goblobber counters, I think, like I had the Goblobber kill like 2 grand cannons or something insane, because as soon as you hit with like 1 volley, their leadership just breaks and they run instantly. Their cannons are better, but we were doing it on predominantly open maps, which normally suit Cathay, but maybe against Dwarfs that's a bit different. See, that's just off my experience as the F, but I'm sure there's a few schemes.
I like your take, man.
How did you deal with crane gunners in your experience? Like, did your opponents bring them
Slayers,
against you?
Actually, like,
you just hunted them?
The way I played Dwarfs was I just bomb rushed them. Like, I played super aggressive Dwarfs, kind of like how the meta ended up with Dwarfs in Warhammer 2, where you would just kind of play this slow push. Mm-hmm. And I was using Slayers as cavalry, and yeah, Cathay couldn't seem to be able to deal with them. I think my opponent had like double crane gunners, double cannon, and it lost to a Goblobber, 1 cannon, and just pushing. Because once you get like up close and personal, the crane gunners couldn't shoot anyway. And yeah, I don't know, I found miners, if I put 1 unit of miners on my opponent's home objective, the amount of resources they would have to send that way to deal with it was insane. And it allowed me just to steamroll and like overwhelm elsewhere.
That's pretty cool, man. I definitely like your approach, because everyone I played that matchup about 2 or 3 times myself, and most of the dwarf players would just try and like range trade. But the fact that you do this like bull rush, this like angry Dowie Mohawk rush, I think is a really cool innovation. So that could perhaps change my perspective. And yeah, did you use giant slayers or were you using basic slayers?
I think I couldn't afford the giant slayers, so I think I went basic ones.
Got it. And like, was there any situations where they kind of got like blocked up by like Jade Warriors, or were you able to outmaneuver with your like 40 plus?
You can just outmaneuver is the good thing. Yeah, you're a little bit swifter as well.
That's
I
cool.
kind of like almost the way I thought about it when I was preparing the matchup. I kind of just did it how I would do a dwarf mirror match. Because I think it was Grombrindle, like the Dowie plays, kind of known in the competitive scene. It was either him or Eumenes who taught me how to do Dowie Mirror, and it's not like how anyone expects it to do. You kind of use Slayers as cavalry, and you whip them around the flanks, and you go super aggressive. And yeah, I had a fantastic time with Dwarfs in that matchup. It was the only matchup I had a fantastic time with Dwarfs, I should say. But yeah, I didn't struggle at all. But again, maybe if I played one of you guys, it could be different and might change my opinion.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun matchup. Like, sadly, I don't think we'll see it often in tournaments because I don't think Dwarves and Cathay are going to be picked often. But hopefully, we have some like we need some like really high level Dwarf players and Cathay players, like who are like just top tier players to play them in tournaments, so we can get some good data. Like, we need Umais to rise from his mountain keep and play them, or obviously you guys. That'd be great. But we'll have to see. So now we're on to Kislev. So Enticity, you want to start with Kislev?
Oh man, throwing me in the deep end. Kislev is, they have I've noticed they've transitioned really well as a ranged faction that has had to stand up against apparently what are the best factions in the game right now.
Oh yeah.
And they made the transition pretty well, I think. Like, their passive, I think, out of all the faction passives, would you agree that Kislev has at least one of the best faction passives?
100%, brother, 100%.
Yeah. It's just more or less partial unbreakable or ITP for the entire faction or what have you. Yeah, it's obviously it's not that crazy, but it's definitely really good and allows for their range to do extremely well. I put them at a solid A+. I think people will be playing them. I don't think people will be going out of their way to learn them for every set.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I think that Kislev for me is an A. I wouldn't quite put him in as A+, because I don't think they're quite as easy to play as Khorne, and I think Khorne is obviously, with the tinfoil hat about what could potentially be coming, will be a little bit stronger, but I do think Kislev is just having Unbreakable, essentially ITP on your entire roster, is so good. They have great mobility to play the objective game. They have good trading potential too. Even all their basic infantry have like pistols, with the exception of Zargard, of course, but yeah, and the Lords of Magic aren't bad either. Like, I like the Ice Magic. I think the big Ice Sheet is pretty good with the Ice Maiden's Kiss. The basic Lords, like, Rasputin is pretty good. Like, Katarina is a little bit more niche. I think the basic Ice Maidens are better because they can summon the Capture Cats, but Capture Cats did get nerfed, right? Correct? So they now have monsters capturing weight?
Yeah, it's the same as like heroes and such. So
Yeah.
I don't think we'll be seeing them anymore.
I think we'll see, yeah, like they'll now fulfill their role. Like if somebody's like I played a couple games with Kislev where I was playing against, what was it? It was like Bretonia or something. And I think they had like Paladins, and having a Capture Cat, like, you're trying to goon these characters, like 2 or 3 of them can be okay. But yeah, Kislev feels like a solid A tier faction. Having the essentially Unbreakable trait is really, really good. It's the reason why the Undead are often tyrannical in this game mode. And they have that, plus great mobility. They have good shooting. Decent Lords of Magic, not the best. Like, Tempest is okay. We've obviously seen Enticity pull some pretty cool tricks using the Gust of True Flight on Little Grom, which was one of my favorite tournament plays I've seen. But yeah, Kislev is a solid A for me. How about you, Doc?
Yeah, you guys have summed up like pretty much all my points so nicely. I think Kislev are probably the faction which has gained the most by all the old factions coming in my opinion. I felt from at least my own experience, Kislev are a bit weaker than the majority of the demon factions and can struggle up against them, but I think they've got a load of fantastic matchups to come in. They almost feel like I don't want to compare factions too much, there's a lot of differences between them, but I think they're just like a better Empire in a way. And I love that matchup, actually. Empire versus Kislev is a really good fun one.
Yeah.
But because of their passive, I'm going to bump them up into A tier. I'm going to go A-, though I'm slightly less optimistic about them. That may be because I'm still got bad memories of constantly fighting against the demon factions with them. But I think they've probably improved the most out of all the current Warhammer 3 ones with all the factions coming in.
Yeah, and I think you hit it pretty well. And also Anticity's point about them being... They actually performed well against these like really scary demon factions. Like, they can trade into Khorne and Slaanesh, and yeah, hopefully they'll be able to continue to do that. Next up, we have the Ogre Kingdoms. Would you like to start with that one, Duck?
Yeah, I can go for Ogre Kingdoms. They're a bit of a weird one for me because they're not one of my favourite factions to play. So I've kind of skirted away from them a little bit, particularly in this Immortal Empires. I just want to have as much fun as possible. And there's nothing wrong with Ogre Kingdoms in general and like playing them. They've had a weird lifespan already in Warhammer 3. I think from going from really strong to a little bit weaker and kind of bouncing around. I think they're just a really solid faction all round. Fantastic monstrous infantry, of course. Noblars are a big pain in the butt. But something I've been finding more and more, and that's I've been getting more and more success with the Ogres as well, is actually Ogre Chitin is really scary, particularly against factions who are predominantly shooters but have kind of less range. So against like Zinch, for example, I actually really enjoy playing the ogres at the moment. I think they've got some of the most powerful units in the game, such as the Stonehorn, which is such a fantastic unit to use. I think they're probably slightly stronger in land battles, in my experience, than Domination mode. I think Sabertusks are very much overlooked as well. I think they're incredible. I think they go pound for pound beat Fleshhounds, which is one of those units people have been kind of badgering about since the launch of Warhammer 3 being very powerful. So I think all round relatively solid. There's some matchups now which I'm not looking forward to with Ogre Kingdoms, particularly real long-range gun-heavy factions. I think Ogres can be punished due to the fact they've got so many large targets who are relatively swift, but their artillery doesn't stack up against like the Empire's artillery, for example, or Dwarfs. So for me, good solid all-rounder, decent prefler of good matchups and bad ones. They're going to be a B.
All right, we got a B from the Ogre Kingdoms for the glorious Rubber Duck of War, Enticity. Where do you rate them? Obviously, something to talk about, guys, with Ogre Kingdoms before we move on here is that in our current build we have, Ogre Bulls have bugged animations, like their heads are like exploding, like from from the Kurt Russell the thing, like they have this like mutations flying onto their head. So we haven't really played them much, but what do you think, Enticity, based on any experience you may have had?
Well, for the Ogre Kingdom mains out there, they did get buffed. Nobblars are back to their old 200 price. Nobblar Trappers are 400 gold. So that's 50 gold cheaper. That's basically it though. But I think I'm also a B. Like, ogres have been at a B ever since they got their nerfs. Where they're never really dominating, but they're always like, they're never bad. They got a lot of just cheap like ogre bulls are basically rat ogres for 500 gold. So
yeah, and
yeah, it's great.
Everybody in chat saying to put us on the pot. I'm like, dude, come on, a B isn't that bad. Like a B is
solid. Yeah.
A B is respectable. Like you can compete. Like a B can compete against an S. Sure, you might be at a disadvantage, but it's not like you're in the pits of hell. Like, you know, Cathay has been raided and the dwarves, but yeah.
No, I'm on board with B's terrible, guys. Don't believe them. If you want to be a real player, only S plus, guys.
That's right. Yeah, and for me, I was looking at, you know, my roster. I don't think the ogres are as good as the greenskins. I think they are probably going to be similar in terms of win rates to the Empire. I don't think they're as good as Skaven. I don't think they're as good as Beastmen. So for me, they're going to be a B. I do think they're not. I don't think they deserve to be like on the same tier as like. I actually think they're going to be better than Bretonnia. You know, having 54 speed infantry. Well, did the ogres get affected by, because we haven't really had a chance to play them much since the changes. Did their capture weight get nerfed as well with the bulls? Like, because I know monstrous infantry got nerfed, but did they keep an exception?
Yeah, I forgot to check. They might be nerfed too.
So if they nerfed ogre bulls, I might even lower them a little bit to a B-. Like, if ogre bulls don't have the capture weight of infantry, which I personally feel from a balance perspective, ogre kingdoms should have a unique trait where their bulls and ogres have the infantry capture weight. Because if they got nerfed to be like monstrous infantry, that would suck pretty bad in my opinion. That would even maybe lower them down to a C for me. But so B/C depending on the circumstances and like if they were nerfed or not. But that's a big deal for sure. So Duck, I know you're a Lizardman guy. That's like your main faction. You want to start with those guys?
So I've been waiting for this one. I've been waiting since the start for this one. So people in chat may not, like, if they don't know who I am, I'm basically a Lizardman main. They're my favorite faction by far. So I'm incredibly biased towards Lizardmen. But I think we need a lot of all our skinks in chat because I think the Lizardmen are phenomenal in Domination. I think they're amazing at it. And there's a few different reasons why. So really solid infantry, which is relatively slow in the form of Saurus, can push up early. You then have one of the best capture units in the entire game, in my opinion, which is Skinks. They're disgustingly cheap, but they do not count as being expendable. So they've got like their full capture weight. And swarming objectives with Skinks is an absolute nightmare to contend with. And Lord options, you've got Krokgar, who I think is actually a bit of a standout here. Able to duel most of the larger demons. Particularly with support. I had I think 2 or 3 games in a row against Indie Pride, who is a really like great player. And he was going with like Be'lakor and stuff against me, and Krokgar was doing absolutely fine there, particularly when supported. But the thing that's really going to bump the Lizardmen up another kind of tier, in my opinion, is Lord Kroak right now. We spoke earlier that it may be bugged, so if this gets taken away, they may drop a little bit, but Lord Kroak just beats like vampire counts for me. He almost single-handedly, if you protect Lord Kroak, He clears all the chaff so effectively and so quickly. And I put Vampire Counts as the best faction in the game so far than S. So because of that, I'm actually going to put the Lizardmen at S+, as I think probably the best faction currently in the game. I know there'll be a few people saying stuff on the bigger maps, dwarfs with cannons. I think Lizardmen have answers to almost everything in the form of Pterodon Riders. Chameleon Stalkers are crazy good. Being able to Vanguard, be invisible, and clear chaff. They're one of my big wins from this. But again, I'm hugely biased. I'm a massive Lizardman fan. But for me, they're the best faction in the game. How
about you, Enticity? Do you agree with the Rubber Duck?
I think I do, except not the best faction in the game. I think they would. Oh man, against Vampire Counts, it's sort of iffy, but I would put them at like an. Actually, well, let's see. On my actual list, I have what counts are at what? I would say Lizardmen are about on par with Counts, so A+ for them. Or I think they got amazing tools. Rev crystals heal for so much right now. Probably one of the best monsters on the roster. Yeah, and then a lot of the same reasons, capture weight. They got the skirmishers. It's an awesome bundle. Just a very complete faction here, in Domination. But not probably something that it's not like a must-learn faction for like high tournament play. But yeah, definitely something to consider if you're at all interested in playing them.
Right on, man. Right on. For myself, I'm kind of in between you two. Like, I don't feel like they're as good as Vampire Counts, nor do I feel they're going to be as good as the Slaanesh and like Nurgle once they get their updates. So for me, I do feel they belong in the S tier though. Like for many of the points you guys illustrated, just the fact that they have these like cheap, super fast infantry that do not have the expendable trait means they can really, really wrestle objectives. Cheap, good monsters. Like there's so many ways they can play too. Like we could be seeing like these monster spams with a bunch of cheap Bastiladons just trying to like bull rush and terror out things. And again, great lord choices. Mazdamundi's still very, very good. Like Duck said, Kroq-Gar could be nice. I mean, and there's so many different ways they can go. I think they have such a diverse roster, great mobility, excellent vanguarding, good monsters. What's not to love? I still don't think they're going to be quite as straightforward and easy as Vampire Counts and some of the other demon factions like Slaanesh. Well, Slaanesh is very, very high skill cap, but yeah, man, I just feel like Slaanesh and Counts are so strong. But yeah, for them, I believe they deserve an S-. So very, very strong for sure. Very strong indeed. And now this is one that like, I don't think any of us have really had too many chances to test. Have you guys actually gotten repetitions in with the Demons of Chaos?
A couple. But again, it was against Lizardmen. It was the only time I think I played them. So like, that skews it heavily. So I'm going to be a bit stuck on this one, honestly, with the Demons. I haven't really had that much chance to experiment and play around with them. And again, the only games I've played with them, maybe I played them once, but then again, it was, Indie Pride of Milk and Cookies took them against me. We tried Be'lakor, and it kind of wasn't enough. And then I took out Lord Kroak because we thought maybe he was a bit too OP and it wasn't enough. I still think they're going to be a fantastic faction, but honestly, I have no idea I'm going to rate them because I haven't played them, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, man. So I feel like they're a faction that like, have you guys ever seen that meme with like Homer Simpson where he's like super jacked on the front. He like looks super good. He's like standing in front of Marge, and then there's like a string tying all his fat to his back.
yeah.
You know that one, guys? So I feel like Be'lakor is like the string. Like he's very, very good, but now that like he's obviously can be brought in Warriors of Chaos, it kind of changes that. But I'm trying to think what the most optimal ways, and we could even have a little discussion on this right now. Is like probably Fleshhounds. Maybe Bloodletters, Nurglings, Furies, Seekers of Slaanesh is kind of the proper way to maybe play this faction. Like for me, I would probably say like a B tier for them. They're very predictable in terms of their armor. Like they're all going to be lightly armored, so like you can build around that, and it really makes it easier to build against them. That's one of the big scary things about like how the mono chaos factions can potentially be in like Warriors of Chaos is they can go a lot of variance with their armor and durability. But with demons, it's more predictable. I don't think they deserve a C tier. Like, I feel like they have some good units, and they're also going to have the Festering Stooges and like all the different RORs from the different factions as like those get updated. So for me, I would probably put them at a B. I don't know how you guys would feel, but this is really like, we haven't had a chance to really play them much. But yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty nicely. I feel like they're apart from Be'lakor, who you spoke about before, but again, him, switching sides is also a bit of a problem for them. I think they're kind of one of the, hey, we're okay at many things, but we're not great at anything. They remind me a lot of the Empire, but a little less fleshed out and well-rounded.
Yeah.
And considering I put Empire at B, I'm probably going to go B minus. I kind of agree with you. I think they're relatively even, but a lack of playtesting does make me struggle to find a suitable home for them. But from what I've seen, they've performed okay. They didn't get run over by any faction that I've seen, but likewise, they've not dominated many games.
Yeah. How about you, Enticity? What are you feeling, brother?
All right. So, as usual, I'm going to the most filthy thing I can think of. And I think Flesh Hounds with healing.
Okay.
I think that'll do it. So you take like a Plague Ridden for Nurgle. You get the Be'lakor going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. It's basically a mobile strike squad with healing. If you compare that to what Beastmen would typically do, which we rate Beastmen pretty highly.
Yeah.
This is also basically, if you think of demons as a full Vanguard, sort of very fast, mobile healing faction, sort of like a Bretonia with less armor but Flesh Hounds. I think there's a bit of potential there. Let's see.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You're basically doubling, and I'm ignoring 3/4 of the roster, right? No plague drones, no soul grinders, no great unclean ones even, no motorcycles or Slaanesh chariots, and basically ignore the infantry, except for maybe demonettes, exalted demonettes.
What about bloodletters?
Yeah, but you basically ignore the infantry and play them like a fast faction. You basically have beastmen. The problem is that they won't have the spawn, so I would put them at basically beastmen tier. I'm gonna give them what? Did I give beastmen an A minus?
I did. Yeah.
I'm gonna give them an A minus. I think they'll actually be better than you think, but not that much better.
Yeah, there's a lot of untapped potential because in most tournaments leading up to now they haven't been allowed to be played, but now the floodgates are going to be open, so the theory crafting is pretty vast with them. I love your idea of Be'lakor with only Pit of Shades, right? And then you bring a Plague Ridden with the healing Flesh Hounds. That feels really difficult to if you're on Black Ark, good luck defending your side objective against that. Be'lakor just landing and shredding whatever's defending there. That feels really stressful to play against. And would you bring a couple Nurglings in Vanguard as well, just to kind of snake points here and there?
I think the point stealing's so much harder. I might just cut all infantry.
Wow, and just go mass cab. Would you bring Seekers of Slaanesh as well?
Yeah, I'm thinking that. So because 4 Flesh Hounds can sort of use up your supply constantly in Domination.
Yeah,
I think you'll basically always have a core of 4 Seekers, 4 Flesh Hounds.
Yeah.
You summon nothing else, and then as they die, you just resummon them back again. And that's just your constant core army.
I like that, man. What would you do, Rubber Duck? What would be the direction you would play? Would you kind of do you agree with Anticity's points about playing this mobile Be'lakor goon squad, or would you do something a little bit different?
That's definitely the right way to play it. My micro would be crying most of the time.
That's very apt.
I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would go for an old school, just rock and roll, bring all the heavy metal units I can and bomb rush the enemy, because it's my favorite way of playing. I also just love some of the different Lord options they can bring. I do think Be'lakor, I don't know how you guys feel about Be'lakor in the current game. I've had a lot of discussions with different people claiming if he's kind of overpowered or if he's absolutely balanced and stuff. I find him to be maybe a little bit overtuned, but now that I've played some of the older factions against him, I'm less concerned by Be'lakor than I once was. I don't know, have you guys experienced that with Be'lakor?
Yeah, he's very good. I think he's worse in land battles, though. In Domination, I feel like he's a little bit more constrained, whereas in land battles, you have to deal with him. I've had many Domination games where Be'lakor's flying around causing problems, but he's not capturing objectives, and I don't have to deal with his durability, so you can kind of just evade him or play other things. But in Enticity and I, if you guys haven't seen it, we had a land battle on the channel. God, it must have gone up 4 or 5 days ago. It was Be'lakor versus Volkmar, where his whole army got wiped, and Be'lakor literally soloed everything, and I just couldn't kill him. It was horrible. But again, that was partially because he was dodging very well. Enticity was playing very well with Be'lakor, great Pit of Shades and stuff too. But yeah, I think he's more of an issue in. He's still really good in Dom, but yeah, I think Demons of Chaos have a lot of potential. Like, you know, Exalted Demonettes have been a pretty well ranked unit. You know, you can bring the Hellforged Toast if you need a little bit of armor. Like, but yeah, I think a lot of micro for them, a lot of light armor. So it's tricky. Now on to everybody's. This is the last one. So it's we've reached the end of the tunnel here. We have the cavemen, everybody's favorite primitive civilization in the north. We have the Norskins. So you want to start with this Enticity? I played only like 2 or 3 games as them so far.
Yeah, there's a reason why I've only played 2 or 3 games. Oh man, yeah. I don't know. Have you played a lot of games with them, Rubber Duck?
Just nobody wants to give him the bad rating right away. Everyone's like,
I've played a couple with them. I played up against Samurai. He brought them against me as well.
I have no qualms kicking them down. Norska is oh man, I don't know. I played one game. I gave them another chance, and that's basically it. Because I don't know what about them. It feels like Skin Wolves, you know, they have double the healing now. You got like Fimir, you know, like Spawn have been doing so well. Why don't Fimir do well? I don't know, just something feels like it's missing. But like it feels like Norska should be way better. But at the moment, in my list of factions, they're like all over the way down by Cathay. So I guess I'll give them the Cathay rating of D+.
D+.
Yeah, I think they can, like, you know, if you compare that to like to Empire, then like, yeah, Norska's actually, you know, at least like on my rating side of things, D+ is actually fairly close to many of the other factions. But yeah, I just, for whatever reason, it just seems like something isn't clicking with them. Like they're missing something.
Yeah. They're. I mean, the lore choices are pretty bleak too. I mean, you literally like.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Like a lot of these other factions have such powerhouse characters. Like even Cathay has like dragon-blooded lords, you know, that are really good. Like with the Winds of Magic and yeah, but yeah, like Norska, you just don't have much to choose from, man. You don't have much. Rubber Duck, how do you feel about them, man? You feel the folks feel a little more optimistic?
The inner like Viking lover in me, like the Uhtred of Bebbanburg, is trying to come out and defend Norska in some way.
Yeah.
And I love Norska. They were always one of my favorite factions to play, despite the fact they were never that amazing. I do think they have 1 or 2 good sides to them. I really do think their playstyle can suit Domination to a point.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like a really bad version of Khorne, because they don't have the staying power Khorne have. And I think their skirmishes are a little bit worse. I think their lords are a little bit worse. I have had good success with the old Wind Wolves, though. Skin Wolves, I've found them to do okay. Even against Tzeentch, they did okay, which you'd think that they'd do terrible against. But if you can get your nose ahead as Norska, you can try to just keep flooding units and pin your enemy back long enough. I think over a prolonged fight, you do tend to lose those still. And I don't know, I'm trying to talk myself into giving Norska a good rating.
Mm-hmm.
More than actually my experience with them. I have seen them win. They did manage to. I was defeated by Norska, I believe, actually. And I think the Chariot Lord could do okay, maybe, compared to how he would normally do in land battles. The old Surfer Ek Lord.
Yeah.
Who, yeah, I prefer Khorne Uhtred, but, you know, so I understand the Surfer Ek love there. I think I'm going to be forced to give them the D+, though. I still think, just with the lack of staying power, even their cheap infantry, which you hope could flood objectives, doesn't hold long enough. And they tend to burn out early, and that's always been the case with Norska. It's like, can I do enough damage early on? And because Domination games go on longer, it's really bad to be a faction who does that nowadays. So yeah, D+.
I dig it, man. Here's a ray of sunshine for all of you Norskin enjoyers out there. They are going to get a C- from me. I know. Look at the big place. I feel like one of you two mentioned it earlier, but like I feel like if Norska was like they're like Walmart Khorne. They have like the Ice Wolves, which are just like haggard versions of Flesh Hounds with Frostbite, which isn't as quite as useful in Domination. Yeah, they have like the Berserker infantry aren't bad. Their core Marauders aren't terrible either. They do have the Enrage mechanic. But yeah, like the limited options with Lords and is very rough. I would have rated Norska higher if pre-patch, like if Monsters Infantry hadn't been nerfed and like Famir and like Skinwolves had better capture weight, I'd probably give them like a C, like just probably a C. I don't think they're as good as Bretonnia. So looking at my tier list, I do have Bretonnia as a C. I would say Norska is like just below them, but that doesn't mean they have some decent matchups. I think like I would even like say like I feel confident taking Norska against like Vampire Coast, for example. Like I think they would probably be favored there. You just bring like some Lure of Fire to deal with the Banshees, and you're good. But yeah, Norska, like the thing is, guys, for any of you guys who are sad cavemen out there, Norska is probably going to get an update at some point. So like they're probably going to get some like cool new lords, or maybe they'll get some stuff from the other factions. Who knows? And then they're going to be great. So like Norska is kind of like they just need an update, and they're going to get one. It's going to happen, but now's not the time. And I don't think they're as bad as like a D, but they're definitely a little bit like limited for sure. But
yeah, there is one thing actually.
Yeah, what do we got?
The Wolfric's Sea Fang is as strong as the pre-nerf Pendulum.
Oh yeah, that's dirty, dude.
Oh yeah, and you can't see it where it like comes down.
Yeah, it like one shots, right?
Yeah, it's 81 damage, so it one shots like most infantry.
Dude, absolutely, that's absolutely nuts.
If that stays in, maybe Norska's just amazing. So
I don't know if I definitely bump it up a bit if that stays in. Actually, I did kind of overlook that. I mean, if that's in the game now, yeah, I think your rousing speech may have convinced me they are worthy of like a C- or something.
Yeah. So
yeah, they're not. They're not the worst in the world. Like they have some deep. Like mammoths can actually be pretty impactful for sure. Yeah. Like I had a game with a mammoth where it was really doing quite well against Khorne. Granted, my opponent didn't bring like the most optimal build. So like again, these are like most of the ratings from today, guys. Take it with a grain of salt in many regards because they're highly anecdotal from an early access build in which we've only had like a sample of like 4 or 5 different people to play with. So it'll be different, but we will of course be tracking win rates in tournaments coming up. So you'll be able to see like, okay, Khorne has an 80% win rate, but they have a 30% win rate versus, Tzeentch or whatever. Like you'll be able to see all that data soon, and we'll keep this spreadsheet, and in a couple months we'll, come back and revisit it. It'll be really interesting to see how accurate our predictions were in terms of, win rates and, obviously the ratings. But yeah, man, what factions are you guys going to main? We'll close this out today with talking about that. If you pick 3 factions that you're going to be taking into tournaments, these are your go-to. Who are you going to go with? Rubber Duck, we will begin with you.
Lizardmen. Definitely my favorite dino boys. And I'm actually gonna I'm gonna say Lizardmen, Wood Elves, believe it or not, just because I love the playstyle so much.
Yeah.
And if it's like a competitive tournament, I wouldn't. It's my mission to make dwarfs okay in Domination. Yeah. I want to figure them out. I've been trying to play games against people as dwarfs, and no one wants to play them because they think it's going to be terrible. I want to make dwarfs good. But yeah, in a serious competitive sense right now, I'm going Lizardmen, Wood Elves, Warriors of Chaos.
Right on, man. Sounds like a good run. How about you, Enticity? Who do you got in the wings?
Probably Warriors of Chaos, Nurgle, Slaanesh. I think definitely we will be playing a lot of those guys. Yeah. I tend to like it always starts out as me just playing the faction that I think is the strongest.
Yeah.
And then I end up liking them the more I play them. But the factions that I've really been trying to make work is like the Dark Elves. Yeah. I think Dark Elves are like I've spent a lot of time really just exploring them to see if I can find something.
Yeah.
And Kislev is one of my top factions in general, just because they make powder work. So
yeah. They're what Vampire Coast wants to be. Yeah, it's like I can just see like a sad pirate zombie crying in the corner of your room right now, just weeping for what the good times that have been had.
If they get a buff, I'm ready to come back on Coast.
I'm sure you will too. Like I bet you there'll be some like golden moment in like a tournament, like a finals, where you just whip them out and surprise everyone. Like I think it'll happen. For sure. For me, it would probably be, I want to be an Empire main. Like, I feel like they have a lot of, they have a very diverse roster. I think there's a lot of untapped potential. I think they'll be on the weaker end of things. Not weaker, but like, they won't quite break into that like A-tier territory, but I think they'll be a fun kind of niche counter pick against certain things. But Kislev is also another one I want to main. Like, for the same reasons you said, Enticity. It's like, the fact that they have that like just awesome firepower that is actually functional and doesn't break And, you know, really cool cap too. Plus my wife is Polish, so I have to play Kislev. And for the last one, like I think I want to play Nurgle and Tomb Kings. Like those two, like Tomb Kings, I really want to main them. I think Cetra is just so badass, and Tomb Guard are like one of the coolest units. And of course, Nurgle is what I play in tabletop. So I think it's going to be fun to see old Dr. Festus in action when we eventually get him. But yeah, that's it, man. That was good. Thank you guys for joining today. We'll have to do another one of these sometime. We can talk about like specific factions. I think once we get like the full spread of the Champions of Chaos stuff, we can jump back in and do one of these. Maybe on some of your channels as well. We could do that instead, which would be fun. But
nice.
But yeah,
100%, man. I'll be down. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thanks for staying up. Thanks for staying up. I know it's late for you, so appreciate that.
Yeah, that's all good, man.
Yeah.
Were we doing a Q&A?
Yeah, we could do a little Q&A. We got some time. So now, as we close this out, we will do a Q&A. So we're going to pick questions from chat. Now, please direct the questions to individual folks so to make it a little bit easier. So just type like @ and then the name of the individual you want to ask the question, and I'll just read them out as we go, and we'll do that. So let me go ahead and type this. We'll do this for about 5 minutes. We'll hang tight. And our apologies if we don't get to every single question, but go ahead and rip those off. And yeah, we'll do our best to answer them.
We'll just rapid fire them as they show up.
We'll rapid fire them, dude. Yeah, it'll be good. Yeah, I'm pretty happy.
We're all casters. We should be great at this.
I know. I've always wanted to like volunteer at like an auction, you know, like one of those like old school auctions, and see if I could like do it well. I feel like I could. You know, I feel like I could. You guys too, probably.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great fun.
Okay, so firstly, we'll direct this. I'll just kind of ask the questions to you guys. Enticity, why do you think greenskins are not S tier? What is keeping them from being S tier? This is from Gojira.
They don't stay on the point, so it doesn't capture.
Copy that. Rubber Duck, what does Norska need to be better?
Ooh, staying power.
Staying power. Okay, a little bit of more durability on the objectives. Copel asks, Turin, how are Narnia lines? I think the fact that they have light armor and they're a little bit expensive, like they cost more than the corn dogs. Yeah, you have a bonus for infantry, but I don't love them. I think that it's more cost effective to summon in like Silverhelms or Reavers. Okay, so next question is going to be we already answered the Norska question. What would it take for Norska to be considered at least A tier? So Duck said staying power, Enticity. What would be your take on something that could really vastly improve Norska?
Everyone's talking about Norska.
Yeah.
I think they just need like a DLC, new units. Either that or give them like, you know, buff their champions. Nice elite infantry is pretty good in Dom.
So question for you, Duck. How do you feel about the changes to ethereal units? And actually both of you guys can give a quick take on this. Like firstly, Duck, how do you feel about the changes to the ghost units?
I've still seen them do good, surprisingly. I thought maybe it was going to be... Actually, yeah, I've seen them do like pretty good in the right situation. I think maybe they're a little bit more limited now than they were previously.
Right on.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like it was like a pretty nice buff actually. So like they're more generalist now because they'll take less damage from magic.
Copy that. We have another question from Willem. He says, will Nurgle be easy to play for a scrub like me? And the answer is yes. I think Nurgle is going to be one of the easiest factions to play. They'll be very forgiving with durable infantry, especially if they're getting armor. Everything's tanky, so even if you make misplays and get charged, you're not going to be getting wrecked like you would with the squishier faction and the elves. I think Nurgle is going to be an excellent faction for beginners in tandem with Khorne and some of those other more melee-focused factions where you don't have to really worry about positioning of range units and all that. So that is... okay, scrolling up, there was a lot of questions.
So many questions.
Hold on. Okay, so I'm like jumping up here. Question for you, Enticity. Is the Skaven Warp Grinder and Plague combo effective in Domination? So essentially you can talk about if you've had any success with Warp Grinders.
Yeah, it'll be about the same. I tested out Warp Grinders. They're more or less unchanged, so do it.
All right.
And Vortexes are really good, so Plague it might actually be half meta.
Yeah. And for either of you guys... has there been any changes to the lore of Nehekara from the Tomb Kings? Has it been reworked at all, or is there anything in the lore that's just objectively better?
I'm pretty sure it's like exactly the same.
Yeah.
But healing on the passive is doubled.
Yeah, their passives are a lot better on their. So the Ushopti summon now, is it just still one?
Just one.
Ushopti you can summon, or is it multiple?
Just
I've been told different things.
One.
Just one.
The bar up top is like bugged, or I don't know.
Oh, okay.
It just keeps refilling. It's weird.
Yeah.
Next question.
But it doesn't feel.
Why weren't you comfortable going with giving the Skaven S tier? They're a little bit too flimsy to give S tier, like in terms of like playing the objective game. I think they're going to have an incredibly high skill cap. And I think they do deserve close to an A, but like just due to the fact that their leadership's so low and like they're so tough to play. There's a lot to explore though. If you go back and read our analysis of them or listen to it, most of it was saying like there's a lot of untapped potential, I think. So so next up, Jack, we have one for you. What do you think has surprised you the most with its changes in viability? So like what unit of the Immortal Empires like transitioning into domination mode has been the most like exciting for you to use? Probably something on Lizardman, yeah?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I suppose I wasn't surprised by Lord Croak, but how powerful he is nice. But I'm probably going to say the Chameleon Stalkers have been probably my favorite unit to use so far for the Lizardmen. The fact they've got great capture weight, can clear chaff with the precursor weapons, and obviously have Stalk. I have had some really fun games where I should have lost, but because you can sneak units around the side, I was able to like snap objectives and like just about get over the finish line. So yeah, they've probably been one of the units which I think for Lizardmen has transitioned best into domination.
So for both of you, we'll start with Enticity and end with myself. Akali asks, what are the worst units that you guys enjoy using and you find a way to like fit into your builds?
Oh boy.
It's a hard question for you, I would imagine. Your builds are usually pretty good.
Oh man, oh yeah, just cut everything. I think on the Kislev side of things,
yeah.
Being able to make ranged work a lot more, since mass range was I don't know, a lot of people do mass range too. I don't know. Do I play with any fun units, guys?
I don't know. Hey, you beat me with Rogue Idols the other day, so that we could just say that. Yeah.
But I only took them because I thought they were good.
Yeah, see. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of untested potential out there.
Yeah.
So like all the time I'm like surprised by how well units do, and then they can shift into being meta. So I don't know. There's a million things. But yeah, Rogue Idols. Rogue Idols are surprisingly really good here.
They got buffed. They don't crumble anymore. So so they're just like they're basically like Terracotta Sentinels in that same way. How about you, Duck?
I'm a sucker for the Shredder of Lustria.
Dude, that thing's sweet. So cool.
And I've found it was back in Warhammer 2. I managed to take down like a super meta High Elf build by figuring out a counter with the Shredder, which was probably my like proudest Total War moment. It was great. It kind of countered the Lion Chariots relatively well.
Yeah, that's pretty rad. For me, it'd be the Wuzhang War Compass. Like I just love charging that thing into battle. Quick take on this. Do you guys think summons need to be nerfed in their current state, i.e. vampire count, Skaven, having multiple characters with summons, or do you think it's fine in domination mode?
Well, I don't think it's oppressive, but they're above the strength of spells right now because all the other spells got nerfed.
Yeah.
I would agree. I'd say a small nerf, but not. Yeah. I don't want to see it nerfed into the ground.
I think if maps keep developing in the direction of Black Ark that are more open, I think summons are fine. I think if they kept making like MOBA maps, which are like Galleon's Cove, where there's these like chokes, then it's more oppressive. So for me, it really depends on the direction of the maps. Overall, I wouldn't want to nerf them now. I'd rather see how it actually plays out and gather some data, because our anecdotal testing as creators isn't nowhere near indicative to what the true state of the game is going to be. So, yes. Right. So question here, Enticity, do you think fire damage nerf to healing is impactful enough? Do you like that change?
It's not impactful like enough. I think it could be more, but I very much like the change. I think it's really good to have a little bit of counterplay in there.
So we got a question for Duck. He says, Tzeentch is the only bird faction. What's up with that?
Yeah, I know. I've been petitioning for ages. I really want them to do a Regiment of Renowned unit for Tzeentch where it's like yellow and it's got some kind of pun on Rubber Duck for like one of the like flying units or something, but I've not heard back yet, sadly.
That wouldn't be hard to mod either. You could totally do a Rubber Duck mod where he's like like Sartorial's like a giant like bath duck.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be so good. I think we can all agree, like, we should probably start a petition to, like, send off to CA.
I was thinking Furies, that would be amazing.
Yeah, like little flying rubber ducks. Oh, it'd be so good.
We will do this on land battles down the road, yes. But the thing about, like, covering land battles right now is that we already know most of how Warhammer 2 land battles go. There's slight variance changes to healing and functionality, but I think it's a little more interesting to dive into the domination stuff. For me, Grom or Grimgor. Grom the Paunch is way better. His mobility, durability. He's actually a decent SAM fighter too. It's really hard to snipe over the course of a long 15-minute domination battle. That would be my 2 cents. All right, so in your tournament experience this is for you, Enticity. So looking at Warhammer 3, so in the Dark Ages, which we can call the previous patch cycle, who has been your most worthy adversary that you battled in tournaments over and over? And if you can't think of anyone off the top of your head, no worries. You can name a couple people or just skip it if you want to.
Yeah, Houseplant. Houseplant was the one that got me invested into Dom, where he really opened my eyes on how to play Dom in that previous meta. And he kick-started my entire obsession with really grinding to get good at it.
Next question. So and this was for you, Enticity, how do you think the Khorne versus Warriors of Chaos matchup will go? And again, this one's tough to answer because we don't know all the cards on the table, but just your kind of tinfoil hat assessment.
Oh yeah, Chaos should have healing, at least somewhere in their roster, so they can bring the same units but heal them. I think Chaos wins it. So
for you, ARubberDuck and Enticity, if you had a brand new player who's coming into the game, just absolute, had never really played Total War but wanted to get into the multiplayer aspect of things, what would be the 2 factions you would recommend to them and why? Just kind of a brief overview. We'll start with you, Duck.
I'm gonna say Khorne.
Okay.
Because I think they're incredibly straightforward, and particularly when people come from campaign, players are really scared to attack. So I've taught a few players before, and they're so used to playing defensive against the AI, and I think Khorne forces you out of your comfort zone and makes you go on the offensive, which I think is an easier way and a quick way to improve your micro. And just because it's very similar to Khorne, I'd go Warriors of Chaos, because if you can play one, if you can play Khorne well, you can probably transition that well into Warriors of Chaos. And it's just got that one extra layer of being a little bit more versatile.
How about you, Enticity? Who would be your beginner faction you'd recommend?
Khorne's an amazing pick. I'll go with Kislev, though, for more generalist type of play style. If you want to have a mix of different ways to play. Yeah. They lack a little bit on the melee rushing side. So if you're not interested in melee rushes, but you want to have possibilities to explore everything, Kislev has basically everything. And they won't bait you into taking too much artillery, which is nice.
And those are both great things. Like ARubberDuck said, Khorne is very straightforward and, easier to play, right? It teaches you the fundamentals of army movement and, aggression. And then Kislev, on that same note, is a very forgiving range faction. So you get to experience many of the things you would with Empire, but your stuff's unbreakable and very, very hardy. So what do dwarves need to be viable? Probably some sort of mobility or better capture weight would be my answer. And question for you, Enticity, when do you not take Sigvald as Slaanesh?
Don't think. Well, actually, no. Exalted Keeper of Secrets, Lore of Shadows, Pit of Shades. You take that against the counts, and then everything's constantly crumbling. So guess what? You have permanent regeneration. It's amazing.
There you go. ARubberDuckOfWar. How has Gorok been treating you? Have you been using him, or are you mainly just a Krokgar enjoyer over there?
I'm sad to say I've pushed Gorok to the side in favor of Nakai and Krokgar at the moment.
Yeah, because that was kind of a theory some people had, is that Gorok would be kind of like a Lizardman Sigvald, just kind of playing the objectives and grinding, but
I like to think that's maybe a way, and I haven't tried out a huge amount, but just going off my knowledge of playing him on Warhammer 2, he is a lot worse than Sigvald and a lot less tanky even. And he's very slow. I mean, you can sit him on one objective, but I feel like you could do the same with just a better lord. Lizardmen kind of suffer from having too many good lords, really.
Question is flame cannons, and we talked about dwarves being what they needed, so we'll skip that one. For flame cannons, I think they're a little bit too inconsistent. I'd rather take an organ gun if we're going mid-ranged artillery, in my 2 cents. But flame cannons might not be terrible against blobs of Nurgle. The problem is with bringing those against those factions is they can just throw furies at it, and it's such a nightmare to deal with. And if you want to protect a cannon against a fury dive, you have to allocate an infantry unit to sit back there, which then is taking away your forward pressure too. So that's I'm really on the fence about artillery on in a lot, not every matchup, but many of those demon matchups. No, I'm not surprised by Nurgle. I think they're as good as people expected. We talked about dwarves needing new units. What would you guys do? So just a quick fix for the dwarves, to make them a little bit more viable in domination mode. Would it just be some sort of mobility for both of you guys?
It needs to be. I mean, them fundamentally as a faction just don't suit Domination.
Mhm.
So I think it's got to be a full DLC. I don't think a rework would be enough. And yeah, bringing in a bit added more mobility. I mean, the capture weight would be nice, but I don't think it's enough. I think they really do need the speed.
How about you, Ant?
I would give all the gyrocopters move and shoot, and also a mortis engine in the air to kill Furies, like the propeller blades or something.
Yeah.
And then they're set. Just full on air dominance.
That would be cool, yeah. If gyros could like move and shoot, that would be so useful, and a way to deal with Furies. Yeah, because you just can't bring them against Chaos, because a single Fury will just like own you in the sky, which feels bad. All right, so let's see. So a question for Duck. It says Tzeentch gets a unit with a spear and shield, unit with armor and a barrier. So essentially, he's saying, do you think Tzeentch would really be benefiting a lot from having like some sort of a halberd anti-large infantry unit?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I think Tzeentch are in a relatively good place now as far as balance. I wouldn't say they need anything like massively. But hell yeah, man, some anti-large infantry would be great.
So there's a question from both Jonathan as well as Rusty, kind of asking the same thing. Both are talking about why is Cathay kind of on the weaker end of things, and what would you do to improve them? So what do you think they need Enticity to kind of be brought up to, let's say, like a B or an A tier?
I've thought about this. Kislev, or no, not Kislev. I think about them too much. Cathay, if you gave them Jade Lancers with swords or something, right? Just a variant, instantly they're better, because then they can double down on ground cavalry, which is something that Kislev can do, but Cathay can't.
Copy that. Oh my god, there's so many questions. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to get to all of them. There's so many. Let me scroll down and find another one here. Do either of you guys think that Queek will be viable? Queek Headtaker.
I don't think he'll be bad, but it depends. Like, he's viable in fun games. I don't think he's going to be your competitive choice if you're talking about like playing in a tournament.
So if you're playing, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm taking a look at his abilities. He won't get sniped as much now because no one has time for that.
He's not terrible. He's just, I mean, also being a Foot Lord kind of sucks a little bit in Domination. You're quite, like, if your opponent doesn't want to fight Queek, they just don't have to. They can just avoid him.
One Man Boy Band, very satisfying to answer your question about Dune Spice Wars. Let's see. So more questions here. We got the Queek one. Why the F tier for... Well, we talked about Grand Cathay a little bit. I don't think they're as bad as people say. I think Cathay, if they got like some sort of a anti-infantry unit, I think that'd be really useful for them to actually get a little bit of pushing power. They can do it, but it's more kind of focused on their missile and support. But like if Cathay got some sort of a warrior monk type character, that'd be super badass. Like some sort of something like that. Let's see here. So why is Malice so much cooler, so much more of a Dark Lord than Be'lakor? Yeah, what? So go ahead, one of you guys who's more familiar with it. I know Enticity, you've been playing Dark Elves a lot. What were the changes to Malice that just made him so much better than he was before?
Well, he heals 0.2 per second.
So it's just the healing. Yeah, because he was, I guess, already fundamentally had some big strengths. So just healing, yeah. Summons do not give capture power. So somebody asking, yeah, summons do not have capture weight at all. So can we have a day one, i.e. Faction Wars? Not day one, but shortly after. All right. Do you think removing resummons would shake things up in a healthy way? So yeah, this is an interesting question from Sir Tarquin, who did your logo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's honestly a really awesome dude. If anyone wants any art, he's probably in your Discord as well. He's also in my Discord. Hit him up. He's always open for doing more awesome stuff.
So we can start with you then, Duck. What is your opinion about resummoning units in Domination mode? Like, do you like it? Do you think like it needs to be changed? Is it too early to really make an assessment?
It's kind of a tough question, to be honest. I really do think it's a bit too early. I want to see how Immortal Empires pans out before then. I know a lot of people won't be happy with that answer. People have like really strong opinions on it. And I just don't really... I wouldn't mind maybe a bit more of like a cooldown on units coming back into the action. But I need to see how it fits in with what they're doing with the capture rate of certain units and how long it takes to capture objectives. I think it's... Some people say it takes kind of like out of the game because they're coming through this portal, and for them lore-wise it doesn't make sense, and I can understand that like completely, but from a gameplay point of view I do like the mechanic. I just need to have more time really with it to see how it needs to be tweaked.
How about you, Enticity? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said earlier, 4 Flesh Hounds can eat up your entire resummon pool.
Yeah.
So that means your army diversity is 9,000 gold, and then the rest is Flesh Hounds. So I think it could be changed, but if it did, you'd be reworking Domination because it is very core to it.
Yeah.
So whoever changes it has to tread very carefully. I don't think it's going to change.
Yeah, I know before the Immortal Empires, I was kind of an advocate of that. I talked about how I would like to see that just to kind of shake things up a little bit because I was very frustrated with the meta before, just Cathay just perpetually sucking and certain factions just dominating. And but there's been a lot of changes to Domination, and now that I've gotten my hands on the Immortal Empires and I'm getting to play these older factions, it like kind of has rekindled my passion for Domination mode. But again, it might still be something I'm interested in because I do like the elimination aspect of things. Like, I think if you were playing Dwarves, for example, and you're getting wrecked by Furies, right, or whatever, and you manage to kill those Furies somehow, I think there's a really cool aspect of counterplay where then you can summon in a gyrocopter knowing you've killed 4 Furies, and kind of that adds a cool competitive element of like tracking what your opponent's doing and really being aware of it. So I do think it's something that's worth exploring. Like, I would like Creative Assembly to add that, but as like a beta, not like a planned change, but like gave us a beta to experiment with that. And I think that would be really, really cool to see.
I agree. I think more custom, anything that you can do to customize Domination as well, like give it into the player's hands a little bit to play around with, different funds for stuff, I think is only going to be a good thing. But I definitely think it needs a lot of testing before any big changes are made.
Yeah. If you could add anything to Warhammer 3 multiplayer, I would like there to be something similar to what Age of Empires has, where you have seasons, and each season there's a Conqueror, Diamond, Platinum, and you could like push for those on ladder. And then if you achieve a certain rank, you unlock an icon, which is like you get a badge on your multiplayer profile, which would be super cool. I mean, that I get on Age of Empires every night and play just because of those reasons. I'm like, I want to unlock certain things, and unfortunately, we don't have that. We're going to add it to TotalTavern.com, where when you get like 5 tournament wins with Coast, you unlock like a zombie pirate or whatever as your avatar on the website. But I would like CA to do stuff like that. So, all right. So for you, Duck, do both of you guys think Furies need to be nerfed? Or now that Immortal Empires is here? Or do you think they're not that bad with the new spectrum of factions? And we'll start with you, Enticity, and then Duck.
I think they could be nerfed. It would change the factions pretty dramatically. But I wouldn't mind seeing them cost like 600 or 650.
How about you, Duck?
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like, I feel like they can be slightly oppressive still in certain matchups, and they take away a lot of playstyles from other factions. But I'd say a tiny stat nerf. But I think the problem with them is really that they're so cost effective and fast. It doesn't matter so much about stats. So probably just a small points increase would go a long way.
Will it ever be possible to doom stack in multiplayer? No. And Fidel says, what are your thoughts on this Scarbrand? I don't hate Scarbrand. Like, one of the things that I learned from Enticity beating me down with the double rogue idol is that you typically need something that can kill big stuff, and Scarbrand isn't a terrible choice. I've had him win many games for me just by getting a lucky rampage on somebody's lord where they get caught, and like, I did manage to beat Vampire Counts one game where I rampaged the Flying Caster Lord and killed him. So I think Scarbrand is a good character. Like, not in every matchup, but like, I do think the fact that he has a rampage and hits like a truck makes him good. What do you guys think about Scarbrand?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good, honestly. Like, I like Scarbrand. It really is match dependent for me. But I'm a big believer in any unit or lord which gives you the ability to take away micro from your opponent, so the rampage, so they have no control over their units, is always huge for me in multiplayer. Slows and rampage are just massive. Yeah.
How about you, Ant?
Usually I don't run him too much, but I think he has like a good place.
Yeah.
He's a guy that kills things. I think the rampage, I haven't used it as much, but yeah, I wonder now if he gets replaced by like the Blood Brute Behemoth, or if he completely overshadows it.
I think he's better. The rampage is so brutal.
Mm-hmm.
But like, we'll see no Blood Brutes.
Like, imagine if you
take both.
Imagine you're playing Vampire Counts and you hit a Mortis Engine once or twice with Scarbrand, right? And then you rampage it, it's just dead. Like, otherwise, like, the Blood Brute has to like chase it through a blob of like Cryptors and Spears and like, I don't know. And yeah, it's tough to say. The Blood Brute's nice though because he does have the healing, but
I'll have to try it out though. That's sick.
We'll have to try it. Now, question for all of us. So we will answer this one at a time, starting with you, Duck. What is your favorite unit that was terrible in Warhammer 2 land battles that is now good in Domination mode?
Oh God.
Could be Croak for you, I bet, right?
Yeah, honestly, probably Lord Croak.
Yeah.
I've always loved Lord Croak. He was never that good in competitive play, not because his ability was bad, just because players have decent micro. But it's much harder to micromanage on domination, and of course there's capture points. So yeah, I'd say Lord Croak. I've enjoyed bringing him.
How about you, Ant?
Sword Masters of Hoeth.
Ooh.
They got better martial prowess, better healing, and domination is perfect for them.
That's pretty badass, dude. For me, it'd be Free Company Militia for the Empire. Like they're really good against a lot of the demons who are lightly armored and with their shooting, and they can fight off Furies, and they have good capture weight, and they have Vanguard deployment. So I feel like they bring a lot to the table for the Empire. How does Nakai perform? He's really good, and I'm sure Duck can attest to that, right? Have you tried out Nakai? I found him to be super strong, actually.
I've not tried him out that much. I think one of his items may have changed. When I first looked over his stats and stuff, it didn't look like it was too much different about him. I think one of them has been slightly improved, and I can't remember exactly why. I think it's changed physical resistance to damage resistance or something along those lines. So I've not really got a chance to play him. I feel like he's going to be better in domination than he is in land battles, due to his big air effects being quite useful. But I'm happy to hear that he's better now, for sure.
How about you, Enticity? Have you tried Nakai?
Been tried him. I'm too busy. Well, actually, no. I did a little bit versus you a while back.
He was good.
But yeah. The damage resistance is pretty high. I think like we might see him sort of peek around here and there for some builds.
They buffed his amulet thing. It got an extra 5% ward save, I think, right?
That's probably what I'm thinking of. I know there was a small change, yeah. Hey, ward saves are great as well in general.
The Rev Crystals having so much healing, sort of replacing Mazdamundi, is really a game changer for all the fighting Lizardman lords.
So strong, dude. Yeah, just making... Yeah, because I remember I had a game where I was playing Chaos Warriors with Chaos against Lizards, and like Archeon, I kept beating down Nakai, and then you'd just be like full health when I'd look again. I'm like, what the hell is this shit? There was like a Rev Crystal sitting back there just healing him, and I was like, oh, that explains it. Yeah, that's very, very strong for sure. All right, so a couple more questions here before we close out. What would so here's one. It's a meta question. What steps can CA take to make multiplayer more popular? I mean, really, just some of the stuff we talked about, like what Age of Empires does, right? Giving us a season system, rankings, a proper leaderboard, like because right now, like most tournament players, at least in my experience, or people who play multiplayer, don't really care about the leaderboard at all. Yeah, so I mean, that would be my feedback, is just fixing that up, obviously, and making like multiplayer a good entry experience. Because right now, like, if you're not in our Discords and part of our multiplayer communities and you go to just play ladder, it's not like a super fun experience. And it needs to be for everyone, not just people who are, kind of figured it out behind the scenes. So what do you guys think?
Yeah. A little bit of a hot take.
Yeah.
I think making single player, if they make single player the most satisfying thing in the world, where people just want more gameplay, but they've already played the entirety of the campaigns, I think that actually helps out multiplayer a lot too. Just like the bleed over from that.
Yeah, I agree with both of you actually, both those points. I think games like this need a really, really like fantastic campaign, because it's what almost everyone plays, not everyone, but the majority of people play campaign before they ever touch multiplayer, and it's what gets them into it. So I think having a really solid campaign helps, but what Turin's been saying is something I've been asking for so long. I think way back when Warhammer 3 got announced, it was like the top of the list of stuff I wanted for multiplayer was to have seasons and leagues and that kind of stuff brought in.
Yeah.
They could even do like a tournament system that I don't think would be too tough to implement. I know a load of other kind of modern multiplayer games have that in, so I think that just needs to catch up a little bit, and I think it would get so many more people into the competitive scene, because as you said before, it's almost like a hidden community to a point. If they don't watch YouTubers, how do you find all these Discords and tournaments and so on?
Dude, and you hit the nail on the head as one of the features I forgot about, but I think would be really cool is the so in Warcraft 3, in the original Warcraft 3, the Frozen Throne, they had computer run tournaments. So you would just be hanging out in the Warcraft 3 client in Frozen Throne, and then at like twice a week there was a tournament or something like that, and in the top right you just hit play and it just throws you into a tournament, and you unlock like special icons if you win. It was so cool. Like Yeah, features like that would be pretty next level and would really be a great gateway for people who just play ladder to like find their way into tournaments and then, you know, eventually figure it out from there. But
yeah, there's so many cool rewards you could do. You said before, like, you can just get like an emblem under your name.
Yeah.
It would be maybe a bit harder to do, but maybe you could get an in-game reskin of like a unit if you finish in like diamond bracket or whatever.
Yeah.
There's yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential.
You guys did Shogun too, right? Did both of you guys or?
I did not, I'm afraid.
How about you, Enticity?
Nope.
So in Shogun 2, they had an avatar conquest system. So there was actually a multiplayer progression system. It was pretty cool. You could like change the nuances of your army, and yeah, it was really neat. But something to think about. Yeah, I think seasons would be fun. And you know, I see someone in chat saying seasons would only be like a little bit of a turnoff to you because you're super casual. But I mean, it really has no negative effect on you. Like if there's a season, it just means that the score is going to be getting reset every couple months, and it won't affect you if you're casual. Really, I don't think. But
it might even help because in theory you should be playing more players of a similar skill level.
Yeah, the MMR is pretty wild now. It's pretty wild, but that's just because of the player pool. It's not like super deep on the quick battles. But anyways, that will probably wrap it up for today. I think we've had a pretty excellent discussion. Just want a big shout out to ARubberDuckOfWar and Enticity here for joining. Do you guys have any closing thoughts as we escape? Any farewells you'd like to say?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, go ahead, Enticity.
Well, yeah. No, it's just been great. What I really want to catch up again in a few months to take a look at our predictions and to just see how wrong we are. Like someone's gonna make like, I don't know, Cathay is gonna be the best faction or something. I'm panicking, man.
Dude, Cathay rising from the ashes like a phoenix. Yeah, because we'll actually have all the data too now. We'll have all the win rates like for everything. So, like, but you know, hopefully enough people play those factions that we get some good data. That's my concern, you know.
Well, we'll have the data, so yeah, you know, all the F tier guys. The thing is, we're sort of influencing it just by publishing this information.
Yeah, we'll see. That's very true, man. That's very true. I think there's enough diehard dwarf players and like Cathay players. They have like a really, and High Elves even too. They have these like loyal fan bases that will play them through thick and thin. So I think we'll get there. I think we will. I think we'll get some good info.
Oh, I'm so excited for that, man.
Me too. And Rubber Duck.
Yeah, my closing statement is: don't worry, Dowie and Norska fans. It's my mission. I'm gonna make them both into super competitive.
That's right.
Tier S++. And yeah, apart from that, I've just really enjoyed everyone's enthusiasm over the last couple of months. I've been seeing it like everyone's YouTube channels, and I'm just really excited that everyone's, you know, themselves excited for more glorious stuff. And yeah, thanks for the invite.
Of course. So thank you all for joining. It's been a lot of fun. We'll see you next time. If you guys have if you agree with things, you disagree, let us know in the comment section on the VOD afterwards. It'd be pretty interesting. I'd love to see. And if there's any questions we also missed during the Q&A, I know there was a ton, got to as many as we could. Do leave them in the comment section, and I'll go back through and answer as many as my old man hands will allow me to do. So thank you guys for joining, and thank you too. And we'll see you guys on the other side.